Okay, whenever you're ready. What is that? Is that your phone's ringtone?
I thought I turned that off.
Sounded like a bottle cap hitting.
That's us going live.
Oh.
That's what that was. ARG is live.
All right.
You ready?
All right.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode of ARG Presents. I am Amigo Aaron, joined, as always, by the renowned Mound of Sound, John Boat of Cars Schaller.
Hello, hello, hello.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful. So, Boat, for those of us, wow.
For those of us?
For those of us in attendance and the millions watching on pay-per-view.
Just keep it going, man.
So, if you joined us last week, you'll recall that the retro... Man, this is going off the tracks here.
All right, we're going to start.
Yeah. Sorry. Hey, it's the first time I've really botched it.
It's hard. It's a hard thing to do.
You're going to laugh. And I usually practice an intro about 100 million times, but I didn't do it this week because I was too busy. All right. I know it's hard to believe. All right, I'm ready. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another exciting episode of ARG Presents. I am Amigo Aaron, joined, as always, by the renowned Mound of Sound, John Boat of Cars Schaller.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, Boat. Hello. So, for those of you that joined us last week, you'll recall that the Retro Roulette spun the wheel, we made the deal, and this week we'll be playing games on a venerable Nintendo Game Boy. Now, Boat, did you have a Game Boy back in the day?
I did. In fact, this is one of the few consoles that I still own the original one that I had. This was actually that's a lie. This is my sister's Game Boy. My sister had one. I guess my sister and brother shared one. I covered mine with fashionable stickers from Nintendo Power. That Game Boy is lost to the mist of time. But this Game Boy is vintage from the early 90s.
Now, my brother had a Game Boy back in the day. And the one thing I remember about it was the fact that it actually had incredible battery life, which is always crazy. But the reason it had that was because it was not backlit.
Right.
And I remember that was the one thing that I had trouble getting over was the fact that it was hard to play with this thing like outside. So that much said, it was actually easier to play this to me than it was the future Game Boys that were not backlit but were in color.
Yeah.
And I guess that's the contrast of the way the monochrome looks.
Well, I can tell you it was always easier to play the Game Boy outdoors compared to the Game Gear, because by the time you walked outside with the Game Gear, the batteries were already dead.
Well, the Game Gear, you're right, but even the Game Boy Advance, the unlit ones, they were a little tough to see.
Definitely.
And I think the monochrome actually, it's funny, and the Game Boy was trumped many times over by superior systems, but really crushed them all.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of more superior, more beautiful systems fell in its way.
And what people figured out, the lesson of the Game Boy, is that the games fall over on the table easily.
Every time.
And that battery life trumps all. If you can depend on this thing to get you through a long, car trip or something with just a couple sets of batteries, you're gold.
It's funny, for the longest time, the only thing I had, and this is really decades after the Game Boy, was the GP2X, the quirky Korean handheld. And even it, as far flung from the Game Boy as it was, it went through batteries like at an unbelievable rate. And it effectively, when the batteries don't work, it doesn't matter how beautiful your system is, you're boned.
Right.
And so the Game Boy stood out and probably still gets played quite a bit because they've held up pretty well. I know there's some issue with like screen rot and whatnot, but does this one still work?
I have not fired this up in a number of years, but I would think that it was treated pretty well. I think that it probably would still play. I remember when I went to the now I think defunct Nintendo store in Times Square in New York. They had a Game Boy that was played in Desert Storm. And I guess it had been left out in the desert and been through a firefight and melted, and it's still powered on.
I've seen pictures of that. It looks horrible, but that is amazing. They're incredibly tough. They could take a slamming and a beating. I mean, they were built to last for sure. It did also include one of the all-time great pack-ins. It may be the all-time great, which was Tetris. And I'm guessing you spent some time playing Tetris on this back in the day.
Not only by myself, but linking up with a friend and playing against each other. At the time, it was very cool to do that. I didn't come from the computing background you did, where you had LAN cables and things like that. So the idea of hooking two different consoles together and playing simultaneously was mind-blowing.
I will say this, being from the PC side of things, when the Game Boy came out, there was not a lot of land going on. I mean, to be honest with you, the Game Boy was one of the first systems I saw where you could. I mean, it's the fact that they included the link cable was sort of a lot of some good foresight from Nintendo. And I don't know how many people used it. Did you use it a lot? I mean, back in the day.
Just for Tetris. I think that was the only game that I had that supported it.
I see. So we had a million titles to choose from. The Game Boy was the master of good titles, bad titles, shovelware titles, movie tie-in titles, toy tie-in titles. It has them all. So we picked a couple titles from that huge library to look at. I'll lead the show this week, and the title I chose was Hyper Load Runner. Hyper Load Runner was published by Bandai.
Stop. We're going to save all this, and I've loaded the wrong scene. I've loaded the Amigos scene.
No problem.
So we'll just start. That's a great place to start. And I'll mask over that so we won't even see it.
That's no problem. You tell me when to go.
Go.
So, Hyper Load Runner was distributed by Bandai and was actually developed by an outfit called Tosei or TOS Limited. This company is unusual in that they prefer to develop their games in the shadows. They don't want any credits. They don't want to be mentioned on any boxes.
After this game, I can see why.
Well, fair enough. And they actually they produced a lot of games. They did not produce a lot of what I would call good games in their lifetimes. But they, it is what it is. So again, this was a Bandai game. This came out in Japan in September of '89, and North America in February of '90, and in Europe, November of '90. So it took a year to get this thing fully rolled out. And what you've got here, to sum up Hyper Load Runner in a few sentences, you play a character who's going around and trying to get gold, mounds of gold. And he's pursued by what are effectively bad guys, which are called monks.
What was that movie where they was like, I want me gold?
Well, what?
That little guy jumping around.
That's a leprechaun?
Yeah. Oh, leprechaun.
Yeah. It's funny you should say that, being so close to St. Patrick's Day.
We did that on purpose. We
is that what it is? Well, guess what? The leprechaun can keep his gold because there ain't nobody going to get it, you know what I'm saying? So the Load Runner runs around, and I guess Load Runner, Mother Load, you get what I'm saying? He runs around and tries to get all these mounds of gold and outwit his pursuers. Now, does the Load Runner have a gun? No. Does he have teleportation powers or flight? No, he doesn't have any of that. What's he got? He's got a shovel. And his only defense against the attackers in this is to dig holes. He does dig very quickly. I'll give him that. And when these guys fall in the holes, he can run over them and keep on going. And then eventually the hole will fill up, and the guy will either crawl out or he won't, and then continue the pursuit. The game is built on a puzzle sort of logic. This is not the kind of game where you go out and start whooping everybody's butt. This is the most tactical game probably ever made for the Game Boy. This was actually based on a very, very important video game in the history of games, which was the original Load Runner. The original Load Runner, the first time I saw it was probably, it had to have been on I have to think, it was either on the Apple II or an early IBM PC. It was done by a fellow named Doug Smith. Doug was an interesting cat. He worked back in the day. He had a job at the University of Washington. And this is way back. And he was in charge of basically being a night guard in a computer lab. It was effectively what he was there for. And no one would ever come in. So he started working on a game. And eventually another guy joined in. And that guy gave up after a couple weeks. But this guy had nothing to do all night but to work on a game. And that game became Load Runner. It became quite popular there. It was distributed around the university. And this is a sort of the same tale we've heard a few times where guys develop these games to get popular at a university. And eventually he brought in one of his relatives, a little kid, and who would play this game. And he'd be like, listen, we need to take this game home. Can we just dump this thing on an Apple II disc and take it back to the house? The guy's like, no, this is a mainframe, man. We can't do it. So the kid bugged him and bugged him and bugged him. And finally he said, okay. And he took 3 days and converted the thing to work on an Apple II. All right. So after he converted, he said it was very simple. It just had keyboard controls, and it was just ugly as sin. There was no menus. There was nothing. He called up Bronerbund and said, listen, I've got a game here. I'm sending it over to you. They basically sent him out, that's a nice game, we're not interested. And so he took a step back and he refined it, and eventually he resent it back. And at this point, he sent it to a bunch of people, and they were like, okay, yeah, now we're interested. Now you got something. And so he went ahead and signed a contract with Bronerbund, and the reason he did was because he said the back end would be more money, was short money in the front, more money in the back. And the game ended up being a huge hit. They told him he would make good money if they sold 10,000 copies, and it sold hundreds of thousands of copies. It was one of the most popular games of the era, was Lode Runner. It was a very simple game. It was very similar to this in that you're a guy and you're digging for gold, you're being pursued. That's sort of kind of where the similarity ends, because that game was playable. And as we'll get into later, this one not so much, a little bit harder. And so one thing that I didn't know about this was how popular this game was in Japan. I knew it was popular in the States because at the time I'd heard about it. And if you're an old PC guy, everyone knew about Lode Runner. There were sequels, and it had something that very few games had at the time, which was a level editor. This sort of sounds mundane now, but at the time, the ability to make your own level was a real big deal. And so this was a real added selling point for the game. People would stay up all night making games with their buddy or whatever, back and forth. And I even did it, and I'm not usually a level editor guy, but it was a pretty easy thing to do. And it was a lot of fun. And you'd spell your name out in bricks or your initials or whatever. It's the kind of lame junk a kid would do. But in Japan, this game really took off. It was a real big deal. And from an interview I read, Doug said that he sold probably 10 times more games in Japan than he did in the States.
How interesting.
It is. I don't know, who would have thunk that,
Yeah.
you know? And it's a simple concept for a game, but it really took off. And originally he had called this game Miner before he changed it to Lode Runner, which Lode Runner is a much more interesting name.
Yeah.
And I guess Miner that's been kind of done to death. So eventually they ported this game to the original Lode Runner to everything. I mean, it got ported to everything. The Atari computers had a version. The C64 had a version, and a very important version was on the NES. It was one of the first third-party titles released on the NES, and it was huge. It was a big, big seller in Japan. And so I guess that's where they knew, okay, we got something here. And so there were plenty of sequels, and then some I think were exclusive only to Japan. And so with all that in the back of your head, here comes Hyper Lode Runner. So with the principle out of the way, you're a guy obtaining this gold. To get the gold, you're pursued. You've got to go up ladders. Your guy can shimmy across a wire that's wires across the top of the ladders, or across brick areas or whatever. I mean, it's a basic game. There's not much more to get into than that. You're going to get the gold. What makes Hyper Lode Runner stand out is the just absolute brutal, stiflingly brutal difficulty. I loaded this thing up, and I have to admit, when I looked over Game Boy games, I thought, let's get something I'm fairly comfortable with. And I had some experience with Lode Runner, and I thought, well, heck, Lode Runner, And so when that came up, I thought, here we go. And I tried the first level, and I couldn't do anything. I was just horrible at it. The Game Boy version uses 2 buttons to dig, which I'm not used to that, but that's okay, actually. It's a good thing. One button digs to the left and one button digs to the right. Fairly simple. And so I didn't have any problem with the controls. This is one of those games, the controls are fine. It looks okay. The problem is that they started with, there's no ramp up in difficulty. The puzzle it starts with is probably an expert level puzzle. It's very difficult. You have access to the first 20 puzzles, and you can, when you're on the main screen, you can just select, you can use your buttons to scroll through what puzzle you want, and you hit start. I went through every puzzle you have access to, and there are plenty more after that. I have yet to finish any puzzle. I'm ashamed to admit it. And until I talked to Bode about it before the show, I was like, man, how am I going to put this across? I'm going to look like a big schmuck. But the puzzles were incredibly difficult. There's also the compounding effect that Lode Runner on the Game Boy, the screen is small. And so you don't see all of the screen. You don't even come close to seeing all of it. And so
right, to me that's the problem with this game isn't so much, I mean, it's very, very difficult from the start, but in a game like Lode Runner, you need to be able to see the entire level to form some kind of plan about what you want to do, how you want to accomplish this, because sometimes you need to do things in a sequential order in order to be able to get to all the gold. The way that this game works is a lot like the way the early console Pac-Man games were. Like the Genesis Pac-Man or the Genesis Ms. Pac-Man is like this, where they don't show you the entire maze on the screen at one time.
Yeah.
And that's really something that you shouldn't do on a puzzle game like this.
I didn't like it on that either, by the way. But and sometimes you could understand why they did it, and this one too. But I mean, because you really couldn't have this game in its current element in one screen.
They decided to make the characters more defined. You know, the sprites. The good guy looks like a little Robin Hood fellow with a feather in his cap.
Absolutely.
And you couldn't get that kind of detail if you zoomed out more.
Yeah, but the flip side of that is if you ever play the original Lode Runners, your guy's literally a stick man. It's a lot like Jumpman. It's just a little stick, and the guys fought him were a little stick man. And you're thinking to yourself, well, that's lame. And admittedly, they don't look as good as the guys on this. But if you shrink things down, if this was shrank down by like say 15% even, it would make a difference in the amount of real estate you can see. But I don't even think that's the biggest problem. That didn't help. But the biggest problem is just they ramped up the difficulty too much. Now there is some speculation that this was released as a game for people that were experts at Lode Runner. All right. And just didn't tell anybody, okay? Or maybe somebody in Japan knew but never told anybody here. I'm not an expert at it, and so I had trouble. I'm a big fan of the original Lode Runner because you can feel fairly confident. The puzzles are actually quite clever, and when I watched a playthrough of this by someone that knew what they were doing, I mean, they are real head scratchers even to watch. I mean, and the thing is, there are certain puzzles, almost every puzzle, that if you screw up one time, you just have to stop.
Right.
You're
and
done.
This is evident on YouTube. There's lots of videos about Hyper Lode Runner. This is the only one that I was able to find where the guy playing it has any ability whatsoever.
Yeah, I recognized it immediately because I was like, oh, okay, he's getting past the board that I only saw one other guy get past. It's the same guy. It doesn't surprise me. You know, the Game Boy. I mean, really, the funny thing about this is I wanted to like it. When I first loaded it up, I was like, this is going to be great. It looks really nice. But unless you are a grand master of Lode Runner, and I mean top shelf, I don't see how anyone could have any fun with it. And like I said, I'm not the best game player, but I mean, this humbled me. And it's a frustrating game, too, if you're not good at it. Since you have no weapons, you don't have a fighting chance in this. I can't tell you how many times and on Lode Runner, one of the things you'd always do is like you'd fall into your own hole, and that happens on here, or you'd get in a spot where you couldn't get out, but it's not as common. You know, you get in spots you can't get out. Like I got to a point on the first couple levels where I was like, okay, how do I get that? I had no idea. The bad guys will sometimes get the gold, and you can get them and take the gold from them, but even that help is difficult. In the end, it was just too frustrating for me to get into. And I played it more than you would expect to be as bad at it as I am. So it's funny because this game I actually reviewed pretty okay. Most of the reviews are modern. Honest Gamers gave it 7 out of 10. MU Paradise gave it 4.6 out of 5. That's pretty high.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go that high. Nintendo Life, 6 out of 10. You know, No, I don't think I'd go that high either. ASM gave it these scoring 8.4 out of 12.
Yeah,
these are the craziest scoring systems. Some of these.
Well, you got to remember that this is back in the day when they had, so especially these old magazine reviews, they'd have a 10-point scale for playability, you know, or something like that.
Now, one review I wanted to make a particular note of here is the EGM review, and I'll explain why here. EGM gave this game 3.25 out of 10, and it was they voted it the 4th worst game released in 1990, and that covers a lot of space for the Game Boy, because I mean, God only knows how many games were released in '94, but I mean, it was probably a ton, and I mean, they killed this game. I don't know necessarily always agree with EGM, but I think they got it right. I think that's about what I mean. If you can't play the game, it's not a good game. And so I couldn't play the game. Any final thoughts on it?
I think you summed it up well. I will not be returning to Hyper Load Runner.
Yeah, and they made many other load runners. I will say that Doug was not involved in this game. He did get involved from a sort of an overseer standpoint with the for the load runner that was on the N64, which I've not played that one. I don't know if you've played it or not. He admitted in an interview I read that literally once he did the original load runner, effectively he was in it for the check after that. And Roy had no say in the matters up to the N64 one. It's funny though, to look at some of the stuff that he did afterwards. He did like a lot of like translations basically, and I saw that one of the things he did was like he did like Secret of is it Secret of Mana? Is that right?
Yeah.
He did the English translation of that, and which I thought Secret of Evermore. Excuse me.
Okay.
And he also get this one. Oh no, wait. He did the English version of Secret of Mana, and he contributed to the localization of Chrono Trigger.
Wow.
Now I know those aren't my bag, but I know people love those. And he was executive producer of Secret of Evermore, which I don't know. I've not heard of that.
That's another Square action RPG.
Really? I'm guessing that his popularity in Japan probably didn't hurt him in that department. Maybe that's the way how he landed that
gig. That was his foot in the door.
So he's worked on better games. Let's just put it that way. And if you've played this game and not played any of the early load runners, I would say, because I hope this didn't kill load runner, but if you haven't played any of the early load runners, give them a shot, because they're really fun games and they're challenging. I mean, none of them are super easy, but they're absolutely more fun than this one, and then once you get good at those, you can maybe come back to this one.
Sounds good.
So what do you got for us this week, Boat?
You didn't look it up on eBay this week?
Oh, I did. My bad. Well, as is the comment on these are El Cheapo Grande, loose, you get it for $5 or less, and box $7 to $10 or less.
So this is a cheap game.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, if you're curious about what game I have out here, this is the only Game Boy game I currently own. This is the original Tamagotchi Game Boy.
Oh, the little
game.
pets?
Yeah.
No kidding.
For the original Game Boy, I picked this up in Japan, and I've never played it, but I thought the box looked really neat, and
really?
So I've kept it all these years.
I wondered, does this have a battery in it to keep your Tamagotchi?
Probably so.
Something I should mention before we leave Hyper Load Runner, it does have a level editor on it, but you can't save your levels. Added bonus. Yeah. So unless you plan on playing the levels locally, quickly, before you turn off your Game Boy or have to change the batteries, I'm guessing that level editor didn't get used too much.
No, that's terrible.
Yeah.
That's terrible. All right, Aaron,
Boat.
It's time to talk about The Legend of Zelda: Link's Awakening. Okay, so the Zelda series, it's one of the most storied series in all of gaming. This was the 4th Zelda title in the series. The first 2 were on the NES. The 3rd was on the Super Nintendo, and this game came out after the Super Nintendo version. It is most like the Super Nintendo Zelda. It's most like A Link to the Past. For those who are not familiar with the Zelda series, the original games before it went to 3D are all very similar except for the second one. The second one is a totally different game, much like Super Mario Brothers 2 is a totally different game than the rest of the Mario games.
Is that the side-scrolling one?
Yeah.
That's my favorite one.
Okay.
And I know it's the most hated.
So, well, actually, it's got much like everything that's hated, it's got a strong contingent of people that actually think it's the best, so you can join that crowd. But the way that Zelda games work, the way that Zelda's 1, 3, and the Game Boy work, plus all of the ones that came out on the Game Boy after this, are You explore this vast world. Combat is entirely real time, so even though you have a top-down perspective like you would in a game like Final Fantasy, in this game, when you attack an enemy, you push a button and you swing your sword or you throw a thing. But it has elements of role-playing and it has elements of adventure gaming. I think that the Zelda series is most like, people like you say, well, I never got into Zelda. I was more of a Bard's Tale guy. But there's not really a comparison between those two games. This is more of a spiritual successor to the 2600 game Adventure, where you're roaming around, killing things with your sword and finding secret places. There really isn't a level system in Zelda. There are no statistics. You do have a life bar, but it's not numbers based. It's heart based, like a lot of games. But the reason why people like Zelda is, number one, the characters are engaging. Link is kind of your everyman fantasy hero. There are recurring characters in all the games that people kind of like, and I think that people really like the puzzle solving aspect of it, because at its core, half of the game is a puzzle game, much like the game like Boxel, or a game where you push around boxes, or The Adventures of Lolo or something like that. Once you go into a dungeon, it's part combat, but it's part puzzle solving, and it's mostly puzzle solving. The combat in Zelda, apart from the bosses, has never been very tough. What is interesting about, I'm not going to talk too much about the Zelda series, because we could do a whole episode on the Zelda series, but I want to talk about what makes the Game Boy Zelda unique. Okay, so this was released in 1993, August of 1993 in the United States. It was developed by Nintendo EAD. Nintendo EAD was formerly called Nintendo R&D 4. And this was a group that released most of the awesome titles for the Nintendo, like Super Mario Brothers. The R&D 4, now known as Nintendo EAD, they were headed up by Shigeru Miyamoto and Takashi Tezuka, and these guys are the sort of the 1-2 punch of the Nintendo success. So in Link's Awakening, the story it's very simple. Link wakes up on an island. He doesn't know what he's doing there. And there's this guy in the room with him, and he says, "You need to wake up the windfish, and all your questions will be answered." So what you have to do is you have to go discover 7 dungeons. You have to beat the bosses that are within them, and you have to retrieve 7 musical instruments, which, played in tandem, will awake the windfish. That's the plot of the game. So in that way, it's no different than most of the 2D Zelda games, where you sort of do the same thing with a couple minor twists. This game is the easiest 2D Zelda game, and that's part of the reason why I like it so much. Even though the combat is simple in Zelda games, it can be punishing to die and have to start over. Especially, one of my least favorite things about the Zelda series is that you start out with 3 hearts, and as the game goes on, you can find these heart containers that will extend your life meter. However, when you die, no matter how many heart containers you found, you only start with 3 hearts, and that's a huge drag. I don't like that, but that's the series. This game has a couple items that make the combat easier. There's a thing called a Piece of Power, which looks like a little Triforce, a little triangle that you can pick up, and that increases your speed and your power. And there's also these things called Guardian Acorns, which you can find, and when you have in possession one of those, Link takes half of the damage that he would normally take. Why they're in this game and not in the other games, I don't know. If they thought that maybe this Zelda game, they wanted to make it more accessible for people that hadn't gotten into the series before.
They help a bunch, that's for sure.
Yeah. The other things that are different about this game is they try to introduce some things to break up the normal pattern of, like, go to a dungeon, find an object in the dungeon that helps you get to the next dungeon, beat the boss of that dungeon, and repeat. They introduced this object trading mini game where you run across all these different colorful characters on the island, and here's a banana, and then you'll be, what's this banana for? And then you're walking around, you talk to somebody else, hey, I really like bananas, can I have that one? And so it gives you a reason to talk to the people in villages, which you really didn't always have before. And so the game is much more role-playing-ish, like, in that respect than the earlier Zeldas. And another thing that makes this different and makes this my favorite Zelda title of all time is that this game is almost like a parody of the other Zelda games. It's very self-aware. You may not know that because of the fact that you haven't played them all, but it sort of gives you a wink and a nod that you know what's going on here. For example, when you talk to there are these boys that are tossing a ball in the village, and they're like, you can press select to see the map. I don't really know what that means, but maybe you can figure it out. It breaks the fourth wall on several occasions. The game itself doesn't take itself very seriously, as evidenced by the amount of cameos in this game too. In addition to your normal Zelda fare, there are several appearances of other famous Nintendo characters in this game.
I was wondering, because I came across Yoshi. I mean, Yoshi's in here. He's not normally in a Zelda, right?
No. In fact, there's of course, you've got Goombas. There are side-scrolling sections in this game. When you go down into a dungeon, sometimes the perspective shifts into a 2D view, which is crazy, and it's never been done since.
Really? I was wondering if that was standard or not.
No.
What about the guy that's chained up in the village? It's that ball that's on the chain. Is he something that usually? Yeah, that's a Mario guy, right?
That's a chain chomp.
And is he another guy? I thought that was odd when I saw him.
He's not in any other game.
You're right. That was subtlety. It was lost on me.
This was put in at the last minute because one of the programmers was like, "Hey, watch this! I can put this in the game, and Link can take him for a walk," and they worked it into the game. So other cameos, Dr. Wright from the Super NES version of SimCity. I don't know if you ever played that, but
Will Wright made it, right? Maybe that's
maybe so. Actually, I never made that connection.
W, right? Mr. Wright with a W.
Yeah. But he's sort of a guy they put in SimCity to make it a little bit more personable and less just sterile. He's in the game. Wart from Super Mario Brothers 2 is in this game as a music teacher. So I didn't remember that from when I played it before. So anyway, it's very funny. There's a guy that you meet in the town. He's just hanging out in his house, and he's like, "What's up? I'm going to be lost in the hills later. If you I'm going to need your help." So I thought it was just sort of a breath of fresh air. So many games take themselves so seriously these days, and Zelda is kind of fallen into that, too. Breath of the Wild is a more, realistic game, and I have not played Breath of the Wild, but I doubt that it's got the amount of humor that this game has. And the way that they handle what you're supposed to do next is also very cool. Ordinarily, did you ever play the N64 Zelda?
I've had a cup of coffee.
Okay, so in the N64, there's like a fairy that is constantly hovering around you, and she says, "Hey, hey," and she's constantly bugging you and telling what you need to do next. In this game, you use a phone, which can be found in several places throughout the world, to call this guy that lives in the village. He won't talk to you if you go into his house and talk to him. He says, "You need to call me, I'm shy." But then he tells you what you have to do next, which is really cool. I mean, it's just a different thing.
I think that fairy reappeared in the Wii version as well.
Maybe so, maybe so. So anyway, that is sort of a sketch of the game. Now, tell me, what do you think of the Zelda series?
Well, it's pretty common knowledge that this stuff's not my bag, and this is gonna be the good cop, bad cop thing. Well, it's not really. I've played the Zeldas on the NES, the first couple, and I have played a couple of the N64 ones, but I'm by no means a Zelda expert. When you picked this last week, I was like, oh boy, Zelda, this is gonna be a struggle. And I will say that for starters, the Game Boy does a tremendous job graphically with this game. It is very attractive. It's very easy on the eyes. It's very cute. They did a good job with the text. It's easy to see. And I thought everything from a basics standpoint was done well. The fact that there are these oddball characters, it wasn't lost on me. Like I said, I wasn't sure that those guys weren't normally in the series, but I knew Yoshi and that dog thing. I was like, I don't remember. That's weird. I don't remember those guys. But and once you mention that, it is amusing that they took a tongue-in-cheek approach. You mentioned that you thought I was a Bard's Tale guy. I was with the Gold Box series, and also Eye of the Beholder I like that game a lot. And so, I'm an old D&D guy from way back, so I like my role playing a little more serious. and a little less. To me, the Zelda series, to a point, was very kidified. I'm not into the cutesy graphics, and I'm not into the. I mean, I don't think this stuff's really. To me, it doesn't even feel like a role-playing game because what you're doing is just sort of. Hear me out. It's sort of silliness to me, and cutesiness. Now that much said, that's my personal preference. If you're into the exploration and discovery thing, I can understand how you can get into it. And again, I think it's a generational thing because really, when I was growing up, this stuff was not around until later on. And by the time I got old, this stuff came out, and I'd already done some other stuff.
Okay, let me before you go on. Nobody calls this game a role-playing game. This is not a role-playing game. So to compare it to a role-playing game doesn't do anybody anything.
Well, you just mentioned it earlier that had role-playing elements.
It's got role-playing elements, aka you talk to people in town.
Well, again, I don't want to debate you. I'm just saying, to me, a lot of people consider this a role-playing game.
No, they don't. Nobody does. You can compare like Eye of the Beholder to a game like Final Fantasy because it's got statistics. It's got turn-based combat. It's got stuff like that. That's a fair comparison, and you can say, well, they kidified Final Fantasy, and that's a fair point. But it's like saying they kidified RBI baseball because they didn't make it like Eye of the Beholder.
Well, again, I don't want to debate you. I think it's a matter of taste. But a lot of people consider the Zelda series a role-playing series. And that much said,
that's just wrong.
Well, I disagree.
Who? Theo? He doesn't know anything.
Who?
Theo.
Who's that?
That guy you made up that I've never met.
Okay. Anyway,
but he's in the
I don't want to debate you on the Zelda because I know you're passionate about it, and I'm not that passionate against it. I don't have a problem with it.
Well, if you're going to
clearly people like it, but that much, my opinion.
If you're going to trash it on its own merits.
I'm not trashing it. I'm just saying it's not my cup of tea. Now that much said, before you jumped in, I think from a control standpoint with the sword, I had no problems. I was able to advance quite easily. I went up through the, I keep wanting to call it the rear cave. Was it rear? Tail, right? Is that the first one? The tail dungeon. Mm-hmm. I went up through that and progressed pretty well.
Did you make it through the end of the first dungeon?
Yes, I got the little, it was one part of the heart, I believe, was what I ended up getting.
You get a cello.
Yes, you were close. That's right. So, and it played well. I mean, I didn't have any problems. And from a mobile perspective, I think it was clearly you could play it on the go and it would work fine. I like the part. There's a part in it where it's actually that part right there that's on the screen. The part where you use the crane machine. I thought that was kind of cute.
Yeah, and that's another thing that's not in. Well, okay, I don't want to say it's not in any of the other Zelda games, but I can't recall it being in any of the other Zelda games. All the mini games that you can play. Again, it's sort of lighthearted.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the game is absolutely a lighthearted romp. All right. And one thing I've never liked about any of the Zeldas is going through and just hacking down grass and stuff. Some people like that, and they go through every square, and to me, it's not that fun.
Yeah.
Now I can equate it to stuff like I used to do in, say, EverQuest. It's not that fun to go out and hunt a bunch of yard trash to get experience points either, but you did it. So it's sort of the same thing. But all that said, when I played this, I actually enjoyed it more. I mean, I was actually not looking forward to it, and I actually enjoyed it more than I thought I would. It's cute if you get into the right mindset and just run around and kill stuff. I mean, I don't know how hard it gets, but and I'm sure it gets harder, and I'm sure there are puzzles and stuff that get difficult. But for me, I just thought it was lighthearted fun. And I enjoyed it. Is it something I'd go back to? Maybe. I mean, of all the Zeldas, not counting the Zelda 2, and also the fact that it switched the side view at one point, that really surprised me pleasantly, I might add. I actually thought that was pretty cool, and I'm assuming that's something that goes on throughout the game. I enjoyed it. This game, there's a game called Cat Ash. I don't know if you've played that one. It's a side-scrolling fantasy game that reminds me somewhat of Zelda in a more action, genre where you go. There's a town, you talk to the people, and you go to the store, and you do all this job. That's a little more my speed of game. But I mean, this. It's funny, of all the games I've played, that's what it reminded me of. Was sort of sort of a cat-ashy game. And again, not having the experience to having played the other games very in-depthly, I'm sure people can make better comparisons. But overall, you know, if this is your cup of tea, I'm sure it's a great game. There are plenty of things to like about it if that's what you're into. You know, so yeah, I am not here to destroy Link. I'm here to praise him.
I stopped it for a second because I want to get this letter out. I meant to get this out earlier. We're still streaming. I'm just gonna.
Oh.
It'll be like this never happened.
Hi everyone. Is there anybody? Is the chat thing on?
Yeah, if you alt tab, you can.
Hi guys. Boat's taking a quick time out to mail something.
No, it's not mail. This is.
See who we got in here tonight. Hey, any of you guys played that crazy Hyper Load Runner? And if you have played it, were you any good at it? I would like to talk to you and shake your hand verbally. Hosifa is playing Zelda Oracle of Seasons as we speak.
Oh yeah, that's a great game. I did not finish it, but it's for the Game Boy Color.
Is it? Okay, I've never even heard of that one. Who here likes Zelda 2 the best? Show fans. I'm gonna get anybody to show. You know, I haven't played the new Zelda. We've got a Switch, and I asked my kid if he wanted to get the new one, and he didn't give a crap about it. And by the way, that's no coaxing by me, because I thought this might be fun to play, you know. It looks sort of like that, what's that game that everyone loves, the role-playing game, where it's been out for a couple years. It's been on every system. Shucks, I can't remember.
You're talking about Elder Scrolls.
Elder Scrolls, that's the one. It sort of looks like that, and that looks, yeah, Skyrim. But is the new Zelda like that at all, or? So Graham said that he's played Hyper and it's harder. Graham, I'm sure you're more capable at it than I've proven to be this week. How does it compare to Skyrim, guys? I mean, is it better, worse, or somewhere in the middle? Need some help, Boat?
So the whole reason why I picked this game was
Yeah.
like, I've got this letter from Nintendo where I wrote them about the game, and they wrote me back.
No kidding. Oh, I see. You'll take your time then. So you guys hate Skyrim, eh? Really? Because, I mean, I had a cup of coffee with it, and it seemed pretty cool.
I love Skyrim.
Graham and Chris are dropping a hammer.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Do you hate it on the Switch or just in general? In general, hate.
Just in life.
Because maybe the Switch is sort of, they say it's a little bit underpowered. Maybe you just can't get the job. Of course, that thing came out on the Xbox 360, didn't it, Boat?
Yeah. Yeah, there's no way it would be underpowered on the Switch.
I played its predecessor quite a bit, and I thought it was pretty fun. Yeah, Oblivion, dude. That's it. That's the one I played. You know the sad thing, though, y'all, is when I play those games like that, the one thing that it always does, and this happened even back when I played Secret of Silver Blades and Curse of Azure Bonds and the old stuff, is that it makes me really want to actually role play and not play the game. You know what I'm saying, Boat?
Yeah.
It makes me want to get my buddies together for a proper role, because you just can't simulate that.
I would rather play in person than any game. All right.
Morrowind, yeah, I had that. I played that one a little bit too. Yeah, Oblivion had a pretty cool plot too. I thought it was neat. But yeah, you know, I used to be involved in a weekly role playing game on online with my brother and a bunch of my friends. But I've had to bow out for the past couple of years due to parenting commitments, and so I've not gotten to do much role playing. I know Boat hasn't got to play hardly at all either. It's kind of a bummer. I guess it's at least you can sort of simulate it with a computer. Of course, Roy don't get to play that either. I'm trying to think of the last role-playing game that I really got into, aside from stuff we put on the Amigos. I have to think here. Sadly, I really got back into it. I've got 2 or 3 episodes of Neuromancer taped to release on as an Amigos game, but I got to a point where I wasn't sure if I was going to start over. That's why I never released them. Black Crypt. I vaguely recall playing that back in the day, but it's been a long, long time. I used to play a lot of those games on the Coco, and they were a lot of fun. Trek Bower, and I think there was one called Black Sanctum on the Coco. It was fun. Now, Hero Quest, the board game, that I've played a bunch of times. In fact, I sold a complete boxed version of that with all the pieces and a couple of the expansions a couple of years ago for a huge amount of money. The Deja Vu series, I gotta say that Hasifa, that I did play the first one on the Amiga, and I could not believe like how well it played. Like the interface was off the charts. I just really thought it was great. I mean, of course, that was like the first time I'd ever seen it done like that, and I thought, man, this is tremendous. And it's a pretty interesting game. The Heroes Quest on the Amiga, I've only touched on it a couple times. I had a version of it, but it kept crashing. I haven't tried to play it again for the past year or so. Eventually, we're probably going to cover that since I've played the board game. Hero Quest is fun. It's like role-playing light. Basically, you can. It's not like an actual role-playing game, but you can still have fun. Another game we used to play was TSR's Dungeon, the board game. If you've ever played Dungeon. I've not played Space Crusade. Ah, well, there you go. Hey, Jason, glad you could join us, man. Boat's looking for a special Zelda-related letter over here. That's why we've taken a brief time out here in the ARG, and then we're going to hop seamlessly into Amigos. There'll be some major seams, I'd wager. It took me a while to get out of the gate this week. I've been a little bit frazzled, so. Now, UFO Enemy Unknown, I played that on the PC back in the day. And I learned a very valuable lesson about myself is that I stink at games like that. I was into it. I was not good at it, but I got about halfway through it, and I just decided, I just can't do it. But my buddy Chad played the holy hell out of it. Have any of you guys played a game for the PC? And I don't think it had an Amiga release. It was called, what the heck was the name of that? I had it and I lost it. Give me a second and it'll come back. I'm losing my mind. Man, I'm telling you. I'll get it. Yeah, Enemy Unknown, though. I mean, I like the premise. It was called Warlords 2. That's a game my buddy played. I mean, he played the first one, but he was a bigger fan of the second one. Ooh, Virtual Modem. I don't know what happened there with Neck. I have no idea. I don't know what's going on with Neck or Nom. Anytime there's adverse anti-Amigo propaganda, the Nightbot jumped. No, I don't know. I don't know what it was. Oh, you met him, eh? Find it? Nice work, Boat. Vindicated. We've had a good conversation while you've been gone.
Good, good, good.
Oh, was it the all caps Buster on that? I love it.
All right.
All right, you ready to fire it back up?
Yeah. So, Aaron, when I was a kid, I got stuck in Link's Awakening.
All right, yeah.
Okay, so of course this is pre-internet. I did not have the player's guide at the time, you know, the strategy guide or anything like that.
Did they make one for this?
They did.
Okay.
I got it. I got it later on, and so I did what any kid would do, whose parents would not let them call the 1-900 Nintendo hotline
Yeah.
at $3 a minute. I wrote to Nintendo. I wrote a handwritten letter to Nintendo.
Yeah.
And about a month and a half later, when I was still stuck at this spot, I got a response from Nintendo. And so I went over to the bookcase and I searched for the letter. Unfortunately, I did not find the letter. So instead, I've brought an autographed picture of Will Wheaton and my 5th grade school picture in which I'm holding a Super Nintendo controller. So that is the end of that story. Unfortunately, I was unable to find the letter.
Since you weirdly brought these, let me ask you, why do you have an autographed copy of Will Wheaton?
Well,
and where did you meet the Wheat?
I met him. There was a Trek convention in Charleston.
Oh, yeah?
This was probably in 94 or 95.
Yeah.
And he was signing. He
looks much more wholesome here than he is now.
Does he look? I haven't seen Will Wheaton probably.
I
know he's some sort of an internet superstar.
He's an internet darling. He's in cahoots with a bunch of different little projects. I think he does some stuff on the Felicia Day. In fact, he was in, if you have watched any of Felicia Day's stuff, board game show, or Geek and Sundry, is that her channel? Or one of her shows. He's in that. He's in the that medieval role-playing game show.
I feel like Will Wheaton is like the geek wannabe Neil Patrick Harris. You know,
well, I could see why you would say that. But by the way, I also linked to Felicia Day and that whole crew. He sort of came back before Neil Patrick Harris did, I think. So I think they're contemporaries.
Now, what do you think of that?
Well, I'm surprised your mom would let you pose with the controller.
Well, she had no idea. The guy in front of me in line, he was like, "I'm gonna hold this in my picture," and I was like, "Can I hold it too?" And that's how it got done. I'm wearing my Summer Academy shirt. Does Luke go to Summer Academy?
He does. He goes to Japanese camp, and he does a bunch of crazy stuff. And there's Will Wheaton. Yeah, I wonder if Will ever had an Amiga. I bet he did.
I'm sorry that I could not find the actual letter, but that was the
So what did they say?
The gist of it was, I got stuck in this spot too. That's what the game counselor guy said.
Yeah.
And so that made me feel good.
Did he give you an answer?
Yeah, and he's like, "This is how you do it." And I did it. And then literally it was like 1 or 2 weeks after that happened, I got the strategy guide.
Really?
And all was right with the world.
So how long did it take you to beat this particular game?
It probably took me close to 6 months, I'd say, playing it. I've never been the best at video games or thinking. And so, it takes me a while, but I enjoyed every minute of it. I thought it was so cool to have an experience like you have on the console in your hands.
Yes.
Such a cool
really,
thing.
much like the Mario conversions to the Game Boy, which I have had a cup of coffee with those and played some. They're, some stuff translated quite nicely to the Game Boy, and to have that stuff on the road, outstanding.
Now, there was a Game Boy Color re-release of this game called Legend of Zelda DX. Okay, and this was released in 1998. It's the same game with a couple important differences. The first one, they've added this thing called a camera shop. Okay, so you go and visit there's a new house in the town, and it's run by this mouse photographer. Okay, and so as as they are, and so as you progress through the game, when various things happen, this mouse shows up and takes your picture. Okay,
yeah,
and you get a snapshot of that. So when you go back to the photographer's shop, there's an album on the table. You open up the album, and you can see yourself in all these pictures.
Yeah.
Okay. Now here's the crazy part. If you hook up a Game Boy printer,
I knew that's where you were going,
to the Game Boy, then it will you can print a picture of not really you, but of Link, in that pose. You can be like, "I'll remember that." So the Game Boy printer, boy, what a peripheral.
I love. First of all, that is great, and I love the Game Boy had a bunch of crazy add-ons and peripherals and little cameras and just all kinds of zany stuff. And the printer's one of the zany things that's just outstanding. I remember my brother's Game Boy. He had the magnifying gimmick that hung off the front and the light and all the jive.
Oh, yeah.
And it was this big.
It was a huge. I had the same thing. You were carrying around.
Sometimes you could have like extra battery stuff, just craziness. Cartridge container on it. You know, it was almost like the Swiss Army knife of Game Boy.
That's exactly what it was.
You know?
You're right.
And so the fact that they now, what do you think they did that just to sell printers? Is that or is it just something that as a service? How do you think they did it?
I think that they had, you know, they were like, hey, we can make these little dot matrix printers super cheap.
All right.
You know, let's figure out a way to make some games have compatibility with them.
Was this game one of the big titles for the printer, or did it have there were a lot of games?
I want to say that there was also a game that had a camera mounted on it or something.
Yeah, I remember that.
And I think that you could use the Game Boy printer to print a photo that you take, you know, with horrible resolution.
So, but I'm guessing, I wonder if the Game Boy printer was widely used or used hardly at all.
I don't know of any other way that it was used.
I bet in Japan they used the heck out of it.
Maybe so.
Yeah.
And there's one other Game Boy related thing that I wanted to bring up that I saw at Nintendo Power, and it never came out here, but it was called the Work Boy. And what it was a game. It was a game, and then it also had this peripheral that slotted onto the bottom, and it turned your Game Boy into like a PDA. It had a full-size keyboard, well, not a full-size keyboard, but it had all the keys on it.
Yeah.
And you could have like a calendar and all that stuff. And of course, this is for Palm Pilots and stuff. And I thought, wow, this is the coolest thing ever. I was very geeky as a kid.
That's very cool.
That excited me.
I love it.
Yeah.
I will say the first time I ever. This is appropriate for the Game Boy because the first time I ever saw an emulator, I was surfing a bulletin board in Dunbar, and this game, and it said Game Boy emulator. I mean, this is way back. I was like, Game Boy, what is an emulator? I didn't even heard the term at the time. And I remember I didn't know what it was, so I didn't fool with it. And then years later, I was like, I'm going to try one of these things. And of course, then that's when the floodgates opened. Well, not really, but for a select few of us. But that was the first thing I ever saw emulated was the Game Boy.
Well, it makes sense because I always thought that the Game Boy had the same processor and the same sort of horsepower as the Nintendo, but it actually, the chip used in that was like an old, like from the ZX80, you know, it was a really, really old microprocessor. So I can understand how that would have been one of the first systems that was able to be emulated.
It's crazy.
Yeah. So I looked up Link's Awakening on eBay. This is it's a pretty pricey game as Game Boy games go. You're going to pay about $65 for a complete in-box and about $12 for the regular version. Now, if you go, or loose. Now, if you go with the DX, this one is the one that is even more desirable. I guess it's got an extra dungeon in it too, and you're going to pay about $25 loose and about $70 complete in-box.
You know, I will say one thing about the Game Boy. For the most part, a lot like we talked about last week. I mean, you can pick up cartridges for it loose for pretty reasonable, if not ridiculously reasonable. In fact, now that has changed somewhat in the past 5 years as everything's went up. But I mean, there was a time where you couldn't give away Game Boy cartridges. Now there's sort of the market's really come roaring back. But I mean, I'd say I bet 70% of the Game Boy library you could get for under $5.
Yeah. I remember getting games super cheap. And again, we'd find them at yard sales and things like that. And,
I will say, do you think there's ever been a system that had more straight-up shovelware than the Game Boy?
Yes.
And I mean, and here's an added bonus. How many systems had so many quality titles and had so much shovelware? I mean,
yes.
It was a lot of times feast or famine.
I think that the Game Boy Advance trumps the Game Boy. Because the Game Boy Advance has got so many garbage titles, but they've got so many. That's probably the retro system that I play the most on the Raspberry Pi is the Game Boy Advance.
Well,
but the Game Boy family of consoles definitely has the most shovelware and the most quality.
Yeah, and I will say that translated right up into the Wii.
Yeah.
Now I don't know about the Switch, but it went right. I know I had the Wii. It's like every kind of crummy thing you could think of, and Barbie this and movie tie-in that. Movies never heard of, they got a game. And I'm assuming that the Game Boy was fairly easy to develop for, and that's why that stuff and cheap.
Yeah.
So yeah. So that's pretty good, Bo. I think overall, like I said, you were killing me. I'm telling you, I thought it was okay.
Good.
And that's okay is pretty good coming from
I respect that.
So we should probably mention that we should talk about our Patreon on this thing. We are going to open up ARG to our Patreon. If you decide that you'd like to support the show, you can head over there. What's the address for the Patreon?
It's patreon.com/Amigos podcast.
And you know, this is as free as it gets. We're not going to charge anything. It's just if you feel motivated to throw us a buck, you know, we'll be more than happy to take it.
And you know, this goes without saying, but if you're already supporting us for Amigos, please do not give us any more money for ARG. You're already doing enough.
Yeah, we appreciate everybody that helps us out.
Yeah.
So normally, this is when I'd say, Boat, get the wheel. But we're going to change up with a special episode next time out. We call it the Switcheroo episode. So me and Boat have picked games for each other to play as opposed to picking them for ourselves. And we're effectively forcing one another to play the games. So we both picked games, and it's funny, completely coincidentally, we both picked games for the same system. So what are the odds? So I will go first, Boat, and for you, I picked for the Sega Master System, Choplifter.
Oh,
we spoke about Choplifter a couple weeks ago, and it was fresh on my mind. And I've always heard that the Master System had a very good version, and so I'm hoping to throw you a tasty treat with this one.
awesome. Well, Aaron, I'm gonna do you a solid.
All right.
I want you to talk about pro wrestling.
Okay.
On the
Pro
Master
Wrestling
System.
on the Master System. Well, we'll see. I think I own both these games, and so we will be able to play them on the authentic hardware and see what we think.
Awesome.
So I think that pretty much closes it down, Boat, unless you got anything else.
Well, do you want to talk about how we film this show live every week?
We do film it live. These people can attest to it. They are live chatters. We've got a pretty good crowd in here today. I can't tell exactly how many we've got.
Yeah, we shout outs to UK Retro Gamer, Pixels at Dawn, Duncan Styles, Will Williams, Chris Folds, Jason Warnes, Treyguard, Necronom, Hasifa. Thanks, guys, so much for hanging out with us. Michael Ryan, a.k.a. Creepy Dead Boy.
I saw the Huck in there earlier.
So thanks so much. Like I said, most weeks we record on Fridays at about 5:30 Eastern Time. However, the next 2 weeks we are recording ahead of schedule because I'm going to be out of town for a couple weeks and got Easter coming up. So look for us in your podcast feed or on the YouTube channel, and we'll be back in 3 weeks live and in style.
Yeah, and the shows will still be going out at the same bat time, same bat channel, just won't be recorded live.
Right.
And we appreciate everyone for showing up, and thank you very much. Like I said, we usually record this right before we record Amigos, so that'll be kicking back in as soon as April rolls around. So I guess that's all we got. We will take it to the house next week, Master System Switcheroo time, and until then, adios.
All right, that's it.
God.
Do you think that went well? Sorry, I thought for sure I knew exactly where that letter was. And
It's like, no, I thought it was okay. I didn't think it was a problem. It's just that I hated my game so much this week. It was so disappointing, man.
Yeah.
How can you botch Load Runner? I just can't
know.
figure it out.
I don't know.
So anyway,
All right, I'm gonna get another water and run to the restroom.
you better just run, sprint.
Run as fast as I can. You can keep the champ company.
All right.
Look at this. I'm drinking a new brand.
What do you got there, Boat?
Belle V. That's beautiful life
Is that
in French.
Wow.
Pure aqua.
Rich guy pop.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So it's a grapefruit sparkling water. Please.
I am drinking sparkling. What am I drinking? Scotch today, Boat? Is that what we got on tap here?
You're the one that poured it.
I don't know. It's the same crap I've been drinking for the past couple
well,
weeks.
It's the bourbon. It's the bourbon.
The bourbon. Excuse me. Oh, this is Graham's top shelf hooch, if you will. Hey, listen, I'm with you, Ryan, on that one, but it's not that good. Not this one anyway. Now the wheel will be back. We due to the scheduling, we had to forgo the randomness of the wheel and try to pick something that we could do. And we've sort of already been playing them, so we had to do it that way. I missed the wheel. I told Boat, I'm dead set against not using the wheel, but we had no choice. We could have fixed the wheel, I suppose, but that would be crookery. Crookery. And I told him, I was like, I wanted to put switcheroo on the wheel, and I was like, well, we'll just do a switcheroo week. And then we did legitimately just pick each other's games, and having played pro wrestling for the Master System in the past, Boat did me no favors. No, I have not played Megalomania, and I know people have mentioned that before. Yeah, Choplifter, Boat's in for a treat. I'm getting hosed again, but Boat's going to be having good fun. I actually own the Master System version of Choplifter, and I think it's really good. It's very much like the arcade version. Choplifter, another old game back on the Apple II. As much as I don't like Apple, a lot of good games debuted on the Apple II, like your Prince of Persia and your Lode Runner and your Choplifter. So, man, what can you say? Yeah, Megalomania, though, it keeps coming up. We'll probably have to put that on the list. We've been going through some requests the past month or so, and so I may try to pencil that one in because I've always heard good things about it. But played a bunch of Benefactor this week, and we're gonna go on that one for a little while. Excuse me. Will Wheaton, by the way, we waited all that time. We got Will Wheaton. Appalling. Although the geek boat picture was pretty amusing, so at least we got to see that. Yeah. You know, just real quickly before Boat comes down, I'm going to steal a little more of this fine Graham booze. I'll be right back. But I'm very nervy today. I don't know what's going on with me. Usually I'm pretty laid back. Man,
Do you feel nervous about?
I've just been. It's not like I'm nervous. Like, oh God, I can't do the show. I've just been very keyed up. It's very odd for me. You know me.
Yeah, you're usually a really chill guy.
Try to rein it in.
Oh,
that was good. I like what you said about the Patreon. I like that. Because we certainly don't need people double dipping on us.
Yeah.
That's ridiculous. Give me 1 second, bud. I'm gonna get the.
So I've switched over to Perrier again. You know what they say: Bellevue in the morning, Perrier after dark.
Man, I wish I had your money, Bo. Your big rich guy money.
These are very expensive as I buy them in the water aisle at Walmart.
My God, we got a lot of news this week, dude. Holy smokes.
Oh yeah, thanks for reminding me, Chris.
Falls.
Nope, not that one. This one.
Sorry, it's force of habit
Right
now.
here. That's definitely what they say, creepy dead boy.
By the way, we can take these off here. By the way, you did me no favors this week on ARG.
What are you talking about?
Have you played that game?
Pro wrestling?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's terrible.
But I gave you a good game.
Well,
that's the no favors part, you see?
The thing that's great about pro wrestling though is that it will just springboard into a conversation about Abdullah.
Let me tell you, no, it won't. But it will springboard into something that's going to blow your mind. When I'm not going to tell you about it now, but tomorrow your mind will be blown.
Okay.
I've got background knowledge on this. Your head will explode with delight and glee. Look, I wore my Amiga shirt. I need to buy some new Amiga shirts too.
Let's see, I'm trying to figure out. Sometimes it's hard to follow the conversation in the chat. There's so much stuff going on.
Well,
it's fast and furious.
Most of it was just we were just bad mouthing you the whole time.
That's to be expected.
Quick, guys, erase your buffers. That's it. Oh yeah, notes. Oh yeah, I got the right ones.
Man, how crazy is it that I flung that over my shoulder and immediately stuck to the back of my neck?
That's called dumb guy talent. Bo bought me this chair, y'all. Wasn't it nice of him?
That's Aaron's. I need to put a little plaque on the back of it. This chair was sat in by Amigo Aaron.
Yeah.
1971.
Yeah, the wheel was supposed to be spun. You didn't miss it. Like I was mentioning earlier, since we're recording with an accelerated schedule this week, we had to go ahead and play the games for the upcoming episode, and so the wheel had to get quickly and briefly taken out of the mix.
Right, which reminds me, and us, tomorrow, guys, you're welcome to join us again, back-to-back Amigos recording sessions.
Oh, man. It's going to be Marathon Junior.
Yeah, so we're recording right now. We're getting ready to do Amigos. Tomorrow, we will be recording 2 episodes of Amigos and 2 episodes of ARG Presents. So that's 4 podcasts back-to-back in what is going to be an all-afternoon affair.
How drunk do you think I'll be by the 4th episode?
Well, and then you got to go over to Chad's house and drink more.
That's part of it. I'm going to be ready to party before we get there.
Yeah.
My God, we're fools to attempt something this stupid.
Yeah. So if you guys aren't doing anything different, or if you aren't doing anything special or more important than watching a couple fools podcast.
What could be less important, honestly?
So we're doing 2 and 2, so it's going to be, wow.
It's going to be...
We've never done that many episodes back-to-back.
No. Like I said, it's going to be a lot like the marathon, except more intense, and we have to be continuously on our game.
Right.
And consider I'm off my game every week, you're going to ask yourself, how far off the rails can he go?
Yeah, so I don't know how we're going to handle the post-show, Hasifa. We'll see how it goes.
Listen, if you guys show up for this, it's going to be the post-show is going to be intermingled in the actual show, because I'm telling you right now, this has all the makings of an unmitigated disaster, both technical and psychological.
All right, you ready to make this thing happen?
What's the plan this week, Boatster? You want to do the opening of the gimmick first?
I'll do everything the way I always do it. So when I say it's time for the news...
Are you going to kill me on this game, too, like you did on Zelda? You were all over me. I was trying to praise your game. You're like, you're a stupid fat jerk, Dowdy. I was like, no, Bo, no. Well, I'll kill you. I thought you were going to come over the table and start wailing on me.
I also called you bald. Don't forget that.
Oh, yeah. You got a lot of nerve, Boat.
No. I thought that
I thought I was going to crush that game.
I thought all your criticism was fair. I just think that your miscategorization of the genre was
I'm going to look. I guarantee if I type in Zelda role-playing game, it's going to come right up.
Well, yeah, if I type in my face role-playing game,
but I mean,
something will come up too.
Hold on a second before we start the show.
Look it up on Wiki.
No, listen, I'm going to ask the
chat.
I'll
look it up right now.
Hold on a second. Hey, chat. Have any of you ever heard anyone consider the Zelda series a role-playing game series?
And we're talking about the old Zelda games.
Yeah.
The ones from the NES.
I guarantee you people are going to be like, Aaron's right. Aaron's a damn handsome man.
Oh, thanks, Chris. I need to switch that over.
How you going to work that out in the post? You going to put a gimmick over it?
Yeah. I'll just...
Everybody take a drink?
I'll put a folding chair over.
Hey, look at this Amiga Paradise. Just a picture. It's a lion heart. That's what I was like, yes. I could have changed it.
You can't see us. Hold on.
Have you been to this site here? Amiga Paradise? Oh, man.
I get that confused with Soft Rock Paradise.
What is your hang up on Soft Rock Paradise?
I can't get enough of it.
Do you listen to it?
No, but I did listen to some AM Gold type things.
This isn't AM Gold, man.
I wish it was.
Well, we do listen to some AM Gold. Listen, you get bored if you've listened to everything ever made.
Yeah, that's true.
You're in a brutal mood this week, Bo.
What are you talking about? I'm the one that's calm. You're the one that's
That's why I'm so nervous. I'm afraid you're going to wail on me again.
Let's see. What do we want to do? That's not what we want to do.
I think that boat shirt's empowering you to be evil.
Maybe so.
I should have worn one of my evil shirts.
Let's make sure the game is correct. Looks pretty good. Benefactor, that's off-center.
I'm your mentor. I'm your benefactor. I've never let anything happen to you.
Is that Firestarter you're singing?
No.
I'm the Firestarter. I'm the benefactor. That's my British accent.
Gosh, where is that from? I'm your mentor. I'm your benefactor. I never let anything happen. I can't remember. It's from a movie. Mm. Oh, hysterical. But this Hudson Brothers. God.
Okay.
That's a tremendous film.
So, Chris says Zelda 2, you could level up role-playing like. I didn't think about that.
I am Ganon.
So, if
look at Styles. Bam.
Styles.
Thank you, Duncan.
All right. Well, you and Duncan think that it's role-play. Let's just for the sake of fun.
I love it. I love it.
Let's see what Wikipedia says.
When this episode drops, people are gonna be screaming at the radio, "Boat, let him up!"
Let's see here.
Let him up, Boat.
The Legend of Zelda.
You're very passionate about the Zelda, which I wish I was that passionate about.
The Legend of Zelda is a high fantasy action-adventure video game series. Okay? Now let's search Final Fantasy.
Yeah, but here's the thing. This is a publicly edited site.
This is Wikipedia.
You could have got on here before I even showed up and edited it, and I wouldn't know.
This is Wikipedia. Wikipedia is what everybody, including us, bases all our research on.
Not necessarily. Not necessarily.
There's 19 people on the stream now.
You can't stand it. You can't stand it that me and Duncan are on the same boat.
That's all right. I don't mind that you.
It does bother you. It's all good.
But we need to have even if I agreed with you, like we still got to have some debate sometimes on the show.
Yeah, but that was violent.
We got to stir
an
the pot
angry
a little
debate.
bit. That's me coming out.
People love our mutual respect and admiration. They don't want to see you pound me down.
That's not what
They
happened.
don't see me off air. Boat is like, I mean, if I screw up a line or something earlier and I messed up that line, he's got a board back there with a nail in it. He just starts wailing on me.
Maybe I should hang my.
That's why I have to. I can't wear anything with a daring plunging back necklace. I've got big spots and gashes where he beat me down.
What about when you wore half your pants were missing a couple weeks ago?
Why do you think they were ripped, Bo?
That's true. I did do that.
Good Lord.
So we need to open up the news.
Did you watch? Who watched Bill's stream yesterday? I know a couple people did.
That's crazy.
I got double troubled on there.
Yeah.
That's weird. I didn't put it up, but I saw that.
That's pretty cool, though. It's like both sides of the thing.
I know, it's crazy. Well, that is weird, isn't
it?
Yeah.
Mind blown.
Did I see that? What's happening?
All right, let's make sure. Okay, the camera's working there. All right.
A quick note look here.
A note look pass.
Well, I didn't get to go through with my highlighter this week because I was so into the gun. So I was, what in God's name is that? Oh, yeah. I got a little bit on the people that made this.
I can't wait till you recite all the level codes line by line.
Listen, that's for my own personal edification. Hey, I wrote all the level codes down. Why did I do that? Because there's a reason for it. Because look what's above the level codes. The name of each level of the game. Yeah. Oh, that's why I did it.
Yeah.
And I'm too lazy to erase
I understand your reason.
You're mocking me. Mocking my incredible prep. It's all right.
I would never mock your incredible prep.
I've endured
You got
this much.
incredible prep in your step.
I can endure a little bit more.
Who always said I can stand no more and I can't
That's all
stand
I can stand.
no more.
That's Popeye.
Oh.
The game that just won't leave. The Amigos and the ARG.
I thought it was Ben 10.
I think he said that in the Popeye Wrestling. That's right before he goes off on you. Is that going to be your catchphrase as soon as I hit me with that board?
Okay. Let's make sure everything's all right. All right.
You didn't record that, did you?
What do you mean?
The interplay we've just said, because I hope.
Yeah, it's all streamed.
You're gonna just cut all that out. You know, the bad mouthing.
All right. You ready?
Rutabaga. Yeah, I'm ready. Okay. I love that.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Amigos. I'm John.
And I'm Aaron.
And today we're going to talk about Benefactor.
Very rappy.
Yeah, that's my new rap voice.
Oh, is that what it is? Don't quit your day job, bud.
But before we get into the Benefactor action, we got some feedback, and we also have a package to open.
Oh, boy.
So let's dive right in. Matt sent us a message. He says, hey, John and Aaron. Longtime fan and Patreon supporter here. Thank you for your support. Listening to your latest episode of Amigos and heard Aaron express some interest in a JAG SD card solution.
Yes.
He said, just a heads up, Saint, and that's SAIN capital T, up on Atari Age is almost done with his SD card solution for the Jaguar that will play CART and JAG CD images.
Ooh, I didn't even know about the CD part.
Yeah, and he says, I have his Lynx SD card and it's pretty amazing. When he's done, this looks to be the holy grail for JAG owners.
Yes. Man.
So had you heard about that?
I had heard, for years on and off, I've heard people working on an SD solution. The fact that it plays, and you probably know this, Boat, but the JAG's CD attachment is just garbage. It is hot garbage. And I'm not just saying that because the angry video game nerd trashed it. I mean, this thing is renowned in the community for being crap. Plus, it's old. I mean, so I'm going to give it a pass because it's crap, because it's old. But it was never that good. So the fact that this thing can play the CD games is real enticing to me. Probably won't be cheap, but if you're going to get an SD card for something, that would, I mean, that adds functionality that is amazing. So that's real good news. Thank you, Matt, for that tip. That's a great tip.
Yeah.
He linked that up, did he?
Yeah, and so there's a link to Atari Age. I'm sure if you go to the Atari Age JAG forums, it'll probably be stickied up near the top.
Is there anything that people in Atari Age can't do?
Nothing.
They are quite between the English Amiga boards and Atari Age. You've got everything covered.
That's right. Those are the only 2 forums you need to visit.
Oh boy, that's Boat, ladies and gentlemen. John Boat of Carshaw said that.
Laurent Giroux wrote in, and he said, "Guys, have you noticed that the Acid software guy is active again on the web version of Super Skid Marks?"
I read that message from him, and I had not noticed that. But I think that's great.
That's, you remember, we interviewed that guy on the podcast in a text form, I'm really excited.
Nice guy,
he seems really cool, and of course, Super Skid Marks is such an amazing game. So.
You know, speaking of Laurent Giroux, we had a very interesting back and forth on the. Remember, if you'll recall on last week's episode, we talked about that Smurf game that was
actually like 3 weeks ago.
No.
The
Amiga Smurf game that got shut down by PAOC.
Okay.
Boy, you're ready to go, aren't you? You're in a mood tonight, aren't you? And so, of course, I was like, nah, jumping on this guy, ridiculous. It's the Amiga. It's old. Laurent came right in and laid it out from a legal perspective, and that's what I like about Laurent when he keeps it straight up, and he had some really good knowledge to throw down. So
and this was all on the
Google
page,
Plus.
right?
That's right. So if you wanted to hop in on this conversation, which really was Laurent sort of just came back as to what we were talking about, but it was a real well worded.
Yeah,
he's knows what he's talking about.
He's a smart cookie.
Yes, he is. I believe he is a developer, isn't he?
Yeah. And finally, Walking the Cow commented on our Assassin show. He says that the Assassin Special Edition was the only version I was ever aware of. He says, still to this day, I have 3 or 4 copies of it, and they're all the Special Edition. So I thought that was interesting. I always figured that the original game would be more common than the reissued Special Edition, but maybe not. Maybe not the case.
It's funny that having the original version gives you the extra, that opening level. And so in some ways, a Special Edition, it's special because it screws you.
Right.
I mean, it fixes some stuff and it hoses you on some stuff. So it's one of the few games where you want both editions.
Yeah, there's pluses for both, absolutely.
I had a lot of comments made to people that had either not played Assassin or had forgotten about it, and they were sort of like, oh, I'm going to give this a shot. So we may have upped the Assassin love, at least for one week.
There was one person, I forgot to copy it onto our feedback, but he was talking about how he couldn't get past the dogs, and I just want to offer up that
man.
You've got to waggle that joystick to get free of the dogs. So the good news is that once you do waggle free, the dog is waggled to death at that point.
I'll tell you something, I just jump over those dogs. Yeah. Those dogs, it's funny, those are on right as soon as you start the game, here they come. Anytime you have dogs, and then of course, as soon as you get past the dog, here come the bats.
Right.
It's like, please help me, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
Too hard. But yeah, the dogs are a particular pain in the butt.
Yeah. We did get a review from Podbean. Do you know anything about Podbean?
Is that like Mr. Bean?
I don't think so. Oh. Podbean is, I guess, another podcast platform where you can listen to our show. I didn't even realize we were listed on Podbean, but I got an email from the fine folks over there saying somebody left an episode on episode 46, Sensible World of Soccer.
Someone left what on feedback?
They left feedback on
how does feedback work? Does it is it a message? Do we get stars?
I guess it just says best game in the world ever.
Oh, okay. Well, hey.
So I can't argue with that. Sensible World of Soccer is a good game.
Podbean.
So yeah,
maybe it's overseas or something.
Maybe so. Maybe so.
Thank you, Podbeaner.
All right. Now it's time for the good stuff.
The good stuff.
The good stuff.
Look at all his stamps on that. You should show that to the audience.
So this is. I want to make sure his address is not shown on here.
He wants to show everyone your address.
So this is a package from Down Under. That's my Australian accent.
That's it. They're not going to see nothing else.
This comes from the great state of New South Wales in Australia. This is from your friend and mine, Chris Hassel, a.k.a. Hasifa.
I think he's in the chat
He's in the chat right now, also active on the Discord.
Avid stamp collector.
Yeah, well, you got to be when you're sending stuff overseas. You got to pile on the stamps.
5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 stamps.
14 stamps get you a package from here to there. So open this thing up. I have not opened this up yet. I just cut the tape to make it less ridiculous. Have a message here. Amigos, I hope you have as much fun with this as I did. As I am no longer using this anymore, I'm donating it so it can be used. All of the controllers are in working condition, and I've included manuals and such on the provided thumb drive.
Ooh,
okay.
Manuals and such.
So let's see what he sent us.
It'd be
here.
great if it was just a thing of foam.
Well, here is the aforementioned thumb drive.
Yeah. Complete with manuals.
And here we go.
It's a very small doodad. Here, Bert, let me help you out there.
Oh, man.
Oh, yeah.
This is a mini SNES. And what makes this especially awesome is that it is the Euro/Japanese version with the cooler color scheme.
These are the good-looking ones. Wow, what a gift, eh?
Yeah, yeah.
Asifa, you're a fine fellow. The boat will absolutely eat this up. You wonder why these.
Now, I've been a SNES fan for a long time. In fact,
see, we've got fake controller ports on it.
in fact, I think what we're going to do is a little before and after with this, Aaron.
Oh, yeah?
Why don't you take this picture and hold it up, and then I'll pose in the same way.
Man, there you go. That's a young Boat. How old were you now on Boat?
I was about 10.
And here you are today.
Yeah.
Really, not much has changed.
Yeah, I'm the only 5th grader in history probably that chose to pose with a Super Nintendo controller.
And now, well, one thing that's changed is the controller. You've got the cool, awesome European-style, colorful controller.
Right.
Man, we really got jobbed out on these Nintendos, the Super Nintendos. I mean, this is a sleek-looking unit.
Yeah.
And with the cool, colorful controller, we got that drab,
purple
ugly
and gray
gimmick
thing. Yeah.
You know?
And he's included another controller plus a third-party wireless controller.
Oh,
and
man.
this one's a 6-button deal with turbo and all kinds of stuff. So.
Man, Hasifa, that was nice of you,
That
sir.
was super nice of you, Chris. Thank you so much.
What a lovely thing.
And there will be a Hasifa memorial stream. That sounds bad. That sounds like he died. There will be a stream in honor of Hasifa now, where I play all of the Super Nintendo games.
Here's the big question, Mr. Boat. Are you going to run that gimmick on this that lets you add more gimmicks to it?
The gimmick has already been installed on it.
Oh, okay. Well, that takes you right out of the picture then. Very good.
Yeah.
That's nice. So, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Don't forget the...
this is the first time I've ever held one of these actually in my hand.
Yeah, they're very small, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah. So, but very cool looking. I love it.
That's you really lucked out. Now, I remember the Nintendo was shipped with different games with the European release. Is this one the same all over?
I want to say that this one is also different, if nothing else, with the name of the Star Fox games, because I think it was called Star Wing in the UK and in Europe. Yeah, because there were issues with the Star Fox trademark.
Will there be any issue with that being in PAL?
HDMI doesn't care what you are.
See, I didn't know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, so yeah, we'll be firing that up soon. Thank you, Chris. Aaron, are you ready to talk about this week's Amiga news?
You know, he was your benefactor.
He was my benefactor. He continues to be our benefactor.
And much like Hasifa, our game this week is also benefactor. You see what I did there?
So we're not doing news this week?
No news.
No news this week?
No. I'm just saying the game is benefactor.
Okay. Because you left me hanging there. I was like, you ready to fire up the news?
Yeah, we're ready to fire up the news, but I'm just saying there's a correlation here between the game and the guy.
Oh, okay.
That's my point.
Okay.
Help me out with these, Bo.
Well, I was already changing gears in my mind.
Let me just get the Grambletron here.
Okay.
Don't hurt me.
Okay.
I'm on it. I'm on it. So we had a zillion tons of news this week. I mean, it was news-a-mania. We had people sending us news. News was happening. And some of it I just stumbled across, like this first little item, because it's been out forever, but it's new to me, or I'd forgotten about it. There's a site out there called Amiga Paradise. It's got crap loads of Amiga music on it. Hey, I love Amiga music, and it's awesome. So if you want to check that out, well, that's the next story in the list. Well, we'll go ahead and cover that one while we're here.
Oh, sorry.
Someone has done the Lemmings. Let's see who submitted this story, Mr. Boat. Let me see here. Here we go. Seb John Kiernan.
Yeah.
I think it's the first time I've seen that. We've seen that name before?
Oh, yeah. We see Seb all the time. Well, I don't know if he's posted on G+ before.
Yeah, it must be it.
Yeah.
So Lemmings number 1, which I guess song 1, performed the Casio SK1.
Now, did you ever have an SK1 growing up?
I'm not a big synthesizer guy. I had the cheap, generic, like Radio Shack, probably Realistic or one of those.
Well, I had this keyboard, this exact keyboard, And it was great because it lets you sample your own voice in like a 1-second sample, and then you could play around with it. So I've got a lot of memories trapped in the SK1. I love it. It was awesome to hear this performed on this particular keyboard.
Very good, very good, and it sounded pretty good. Play another stretch of that, but let's hear it. Not bad.
Yeah, sounds good.
Lemmings had some unique tunes in it. I mean, it sounds like you could have pulled that directly out of it,
right?
Right. Another little item, and we'll get more in depth in this in a week or two. I had a chance to put my Amiga in its new case. And this is site news, but it was next to my feed. So if you feel like a very short video of me putting the cases together, it's out on the YouTube channel. And this is a little 5-minute number. I just wanted to shoot the epic event as I swapped them over. And it worked out. It was very nice. It worked out great. The case is quite beautiful, and I'm going to bring the Amiga in to show it on the show at some point in the near future. So let's get on to, I think it seems like we mentioned this a while back, but I don't know if we mentioned on the show, because this is one you put up, about the Cinemaware. Did we mention that last week about Cinemaware? I don't think we did.
No, we haven't mentioned it yet.
Why don't you take this? You're the one that posted this with both, so what's the scoop on this?
Okay, so really, there's not really a link that goes along with this story so much as it's just be very careful if you're considering purchasing something from Cinemaware Retro. I'm not telling you that you shouldn't. We've had representative from Cinemaware Retro on our show before, Sven. He was very, very nice.
Yeah.
But there are reports of people that have placed orders from many, many moons ago that still have not received them. And I'm sure it's nothing malicious on the end of Cinemaware Retro. It may just be they're a little bit overwhelmed with the amount of orders that they're receiving versus the amount of people that they have to ship those out. So just sort of a PSA, if you come across, the site that has all of the Defender of the Crown remake and the Rocket, what's it called? Little Rocket Man.
That was a derogatory slur.
just be careful. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and boy, they've got some nice stuff that they sell over there. And I would wager, surely by now they've gotten rid of all those Defender of the Crown Ultra Elites box items. But so if we hear something, if you're a representative of those guys and you want to get in contact with us and set the record straight or whatever,
please do. I just came across that on the English Amiga board.
We don't want to badmouth them. We like those guys.
Yeah.
Let's talk about, and this is a item submitted by Chris Folds. Let's talk about Tower 57, which is coming out now. This is a interesting looking shooter.
Yeah, we actually got an email from these guys. Marco is the guy that has created this game.
Wow, that looks awesome.
And yeah, I mean, this is really cool. This is one of those games that I think this runs on the new Amiga OSs, right?
Yes,
like Morph OS and OS 4.
Oh, I believe it's OS 4, I believe.
And, it sort of looks like the new crop of indie games that are real big on pixel art that come out on Steam all the time, where they look like they come from the Amiga, but maybe they require a little bit more horsepower than your stock OCS, ECS.
We don't normally cover, we've never ever, due to our idiocy, effectively, we've never covered anything on OS, but I think we're going to actually give this one a whirl, aren't we both?
Yeah.
So they asked us to have a look at it, and boy, I'm telling you, it looks like something like
Chaos Engine.
Chaos Engine had a baby with what's that crazy 2-stick shooter? The game
Robotron?
show one? No, the one after that one.
Smash TV.
Smash TV. That's what it sort of looked like right there.
Oh, and it says that this is actually available on Steam as well as the other, so that makes it even easier.
It's neat that they put it out on the Amiga, though. I mean, that's pretty cool. And like I said, the guy emailed, so we'll probably give it a shot, and that'll be something that we'll probably in a month or so we'll give, because we're going to figure out how to get it working. But we'll figure something out. Something else from the Folds, man, and we actually talked about this a little bit, is a new 4-player joystick adapter for the Amiga. Now, when I say 4-player joystick adapter for the Amiga boat, what's the first game that pops in your head that you want to play on this thing?
James Pond and the Aquatic Games.
Incorrect. It's TV Sports Basketball boat.
Oh, that was my second choice.
Which actually supports the parallel port joystick adapter. And Folds also chimed in that he thinks that maybe Iron Man Stewart supports it, but we're not sure. What
Iron
all
Man
supports
Stewart,
it?
he definitely supports it.
The only other one I thought of, and I don't know if they mentioned on the site, was Gauntlet, the Gauntlet 2. I think it might also support it. Yeah, there it is. Gauntlet 2.
Kickoff 2.
Kickoff 2. Mm-hmm. Well, that would be absolute madness.
Yeah. I can't even know. I don't even know where I am in a one-player game.
4-player. That would be absolutely insane.
And this is super cheap too. $5.95.
That's what a bargain.
Yeah, £5.75.
But we should get that, shouldn't we? Brutal Barracuda mentioned a game this week, and this one, I'll be honest with you, I've heard people talking about it, but I've not seen it. It's called Crossing Souls. And according to Brutal, ever wanted the glory of 80s crammed into a single computer game, you can check out Crossing Souls. I think this is a Steam, it's a Steam game that sort of packs in all the 80s goodness into one crazy game. Have you heard of this one? I've heard people talking about this. That's why I mentioned it.
Yeah, we actually talked about this on the news a couple weeks ago.
Oh, did we?
Yeah.
It must have just came out.
This is a game that is, it's sort of a top-down exploration, combat, sort of like, I guess it's an adventure, boy, that's a lot of words that mean nothing.
It's hard. It's a lot of descriptors in there.
Yeah, it sort of looks a lot like the game we just looked at just a second ago, Tower 57, except I think the graphics are a little bit more cell shaded rather than pixel art. It's at least from what I can remember. But I could be wrong. But it's a lot like the video game version of Stranger Things, where they've created a sci-fi story and then they just set it in the 80s to appeal to all the people that have nostalgia for the 80s. That's the new thing. We're living in the time when Happy Days came out and all the people that grew up in the 50s were like, "Oh man, that's great." Man. Except now we're the
I never thought about it that way. Gee, many Christmas. Is that where we're at?
That's where we are.
What happened to all the cool 70s stuff? I don't even remember that happening.
Those people are dead.
Oh wait, they did have a couple of
that
drug
70s
movies
show
and stuff. You're right.
It ran for like 20 years.
I didn't like that show. That's probably why I don't remember it. Yeah.
You were probably too old for it.
Bo, you're treading a thin line tonight. So now let's go over some site stuff. I think that's all the actual non-site stuff we've got. Let's go ahead and kick off. Now I missed a Dreamcatcher joint last week, and I want to go over it. I'm not sure which one we talked about, so but you have to help me out here. I believe that we talked about his look. Let me see here. His look at 6th Sense. I think we did. Oh, we have not talked about that yet. This looks awesome. I had never ever. Have you heard of this game before he did this?
No.
Because this. How did we not know about this? It just looks so cool. It's a sort of a role playing or a what would you call it? It's a point and click game.
It's a role playing game.
I was just yanking your chain. And it looks neat. I like the premise. The art looks awesome.
It looks a lot like Maniac, or like Day of the Tentacle.
It does. It does look a lot like it. And of course, Dreamcatcher goes to work and lays it down. And very interesting. I read this over and I was like, man, I've got to have a look at this. So this is going to be on the ever expanding list of things that we're eventually going to get around to. But it looks good. I mean, this looks like right up your alley too. But we love this stuff. So. Another Dreamcatcher article. Again, I don't think we covered this one last week anyway. He took a look at the Gremlins games. Were you a Gremlins guy?
I feared the Gremlins as a child.
Really?
Yeah, I always thought that like in my mind that movie was much more intense than when I actually saw it. It turned out to be. I thought, man, Gremlins, they're freaking scary. Like I wanted nothing to do with them.
I'll be honest with you. If they were scary, I was an older person. And I was like, man, these are creepy little dudes.
Yeah.
And I remember in the first movie they put one of the Gremlins in a microwave, and I was just like, man, that's the most disgusting thing I've ever seen filmed.
It's hardcore.
But I liked it. I liked the first movie, and we went and saw the second movie in the theater. But I remember my folks and me went and saw it. And I knew Hulk Hogan was
in it. The second movie flies off the rails.
No, the second movie is better than the first movie.
They
make fun of the first parodies.
It's great.
And Hulk Hogan's in it. I remember I've been waiting the whole film for him to come out. And right when he comes out, much like when we saw Indiana Jones, the film broke in the theater. And they had to rescreen it. Yeah, it's crazy. That's something that never happens anymore, I would wager. But the film broke. But I have played Gremlins on, I'm trying to think what I played it on. I think it was the Amiga version. And I never played the sequel. I don't think I even knew it existed. And I didn't think the first one was all that great either.
I played if it's anything like the NES game, the NES game wasn't that great.
Yeah, but Dreamcatcher does all of his due diligence and goes through about 1 million of these things. Who knew that the Gremlins got that much action? I've wondered why they haven't retapped this. This is going to be one they go back to. because it's still people still talk about it.
That's true. That's true.
And people still know what the Gremlins were. And plus, you had all the big wheels are all in there. You had all the big guys.
I think it might have been in Dreamcatch's article I was reading. The only way that they could get the director of Gremlins to sign on to do a second movie is if they gave him total free reign to do whatever he wanted to do, and that's why it's so wacky. Is because he's just like, I'm gonna just
listen. No movie needed parodied. I love Gremlins, but when they made the second one, and tons of people hated it. And I guess they were waiting for more of the same. More of the same would have been crap. You need this.
Right. I agree.
Something totally ludicrous. That's what was great about it. So, if you're into Gremlins, I'd give that a look. And now here's another great. Speaking of Dreamcatcher, he does a video look at the Seymour series. Now, again, I would wager this was a bigger hit. I knew nothing of this. Did you know? This is a video this time around. And DK's been putting out more videos here recently, which I love. And you get some real interesting, a cross section of these series. I mean, I never knew anything about him before this, and I learned a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I'm almost sure they didn't bring any of these games to the States. I mean, they barely brought Dizzy games to the United States.
Dizzy barely, yeah. I mean, really, he was on that wacky. I know he had a cassette on a Nintendo, right? When he part of that crazy Nintendo cartridge,
right?
That was a cassette thing, or whatever. Supercharged.
That was the 2600, but it was the NES version of that.
That's the one.
And he also had a real cart on the NES too.
I'm really?
Sure. Yeah. I know he did because I rented it, but it was an unlicensed deal, and it was.
Oh
it was
yeah.
sort
Do you remember if you liked it or not?
I couldn't figure it out. It was so far removed of the games that I was used to playing, and the fact that it was so hard. It's kind of like Treasure Island Dizzy, how it's a very frustrating experience.
I like the fact that this is a spin-off of that wacky. If we didn't get the original, there's no way we're getting a spin-off of it. No. So that's a non-starter. I think. Well, I guess we should probably mention that we have ARG out this week, where we take a look at a couple real classics on the Nintendo boat. Depending on your perspective, we look at Urban Champion and Popeye.
Right.
And I say those in that voice for a reason. If you want to watch, characters beat the tar out of stuff, then this is the game. This is a game for you. Urban Champion, quite a game, but
look at that. I'm demonstrating the punching ability down there.
Is that what? But we may have to react. We have to have a live action version of this here in a minute if I keep going. I think that pretty much sums her up, Bo. Can you think of anything else you want to touch on while we're thinking about it?
I did want to just remind everybody that if you are in need of some additional clothing to wear, we do have a storefront over at tpublic.com/AmigaTees. Well, I thought we did. And I'm just going to figure out how to find that really quick.
It's easy. Anyone can do it.
Right. Let's see. Did I just spell it wrong? No. This is a great podcast.
We'll be selling T-shirts out of the back of a van.
Here we go.
There they are.
I got it. So if you want an Amiga shirt of any stripe, we got the Boing Ball shirt. We have our Patreon staff and supporters shirt. We've got an Amigos retro gaming shirt there. So everything is currently on sale at the store, up to 30% off.
You're skipping the best one.
Oh, what's that?
The Mime and Puppet
bar.
Yeah,
even
by far
even our best-selling Amigos Mime and Puppet Bar T-shirt is currently on sale for the low price of $14.
I do not possess a Mime and Puppet Bar shirt, but I may have to pick one up at that incredible discount.
Absolutely. So that is tpublic.com/AmigaTees. Actually, it's /stores/AmigaTees. That was the mistake I was making earlier. So, yeah. All right, Aaron, you ready to get into the Benefactor?
Yes, I am. But I'm ready to rock and roll with the Benefactor. So this week's game was Benefactor, and I believe who was the fellow that selected this before us?
This was Pixels at Dawn. This is his Amigos Game Selection Committee member, Pixels at Dawn.
Beautiful.
Who's with us in the chat.
Now, I will say we've had several of these game selection committee games in a row here, and so far they've been quite good. So we'll see if Benefactor keeps up the pace here. So this came out in '94, and what's fascinating about this to me is It was developed by Digital Illusions. Now, if you'll recall, Digital Illusions is famous for their pinball games, Pinball Fantasies, Pinball Dreams, and they're a Swedish outfit. And honestly, I did not know they did anything but pinball games. I had no idea that they had done anything else but pinball games. And so, lo and behold, this shows up at our door. This is another thing that's wacky about this is it's published by Psygnosis. Of course, Psygnosis responsible for publishing many classics, The Shadow of the Beast, and Blood Money, and a ton of other good games, bad games, and games in the middle. But they always have a lot of panache. So the best way to mention what this game is to discuss Psygnosis' earlier games, Lemmings. This has, in fact, a lot of people compare this to Lemmings right down the line. I think there's I don't necessarily think it's exactly like Lemmings, but I can see the comparisons. In Lemmings, you control a cursor that basically tells these lemmings what to do to escape a level. Pretty simple, right? In this game, this is more like Action Lemmings. You control the main character, Ben E. Factor. Or Ben E. Factor, yeah. And Ben E. is trying to rescue these little guys who have been...
Is that like Ben E. King, or Ben E. Hill?
Ben E. Hanna. It's not a guy you could it is. And Ben E. is an intergalactic hero. He receives this signal on his ship. This game's got a big, huge shtick that it rolls out at the beginning and at the end. A big, huge ton of text that comes out about how you're trying to... These evil aliens imprison these other cuter aliens on their paradise planet and turned off their rainbow machine, made it all gloomy, and it captured all these guys. And so it's Ben's job to go down and rescue these guys. And they're called the Merry Men, these little tiny guys. And your role in this is to go and free them all from their cages. And once you free them all, you can start back up the rainbow machine and make the place a paradise again. Sounds good, right?
Yeah.
So that's the premise. Now, what is the game? Well, this game has a little bit of Lemmings and a little bit of
rock and roll,
of like a flashback or a Prince of Persia, and toss in a dash of, say, like the Lost Vikings in there, and you've got a game here. If the Lost Vikings, if you didn't have to control the other Vikings and they knew what to do, that's what these guys are like. They basically know where to go for the most part when you free them. So right away you'll notice that the graphics on this thing are small. I mean, really small, lemming size small, and
which is a plus because it allows you to see the entire stage all at once.
Well, not really. You can see a big chunk of the stage, but there are tunnels and doors.
You can see. Okay, let me just say, you can see a heck of a lot more of it than you can in a game like Lost Vikings.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So Ben E. in the first level, right away, you know what you're up to. He has to run and jump across a chasm. He's got to go up. He has to go up a ladder. He has to go across another chasm, get a key, come back, unlock a guy, and then once you unlock the Merry Men, the Merry Men are, firstly, at the beginning there's one Merry Man. You unlock it, and then your goal is to get that guy back to the teleporter where you start. Well, not that tough early. The Merry Men know where to go. If there's nothing else to do in the level, they'll just leave. You don't have to, unless or occasionally you have to pick them up and throw them up somewhere or something. But once they get to the point where they can leave, they just leave.
Right.
But once you get to where you're rescuing several Merry Men, it gets a lot more complicated. Every level will have keys, gold and silver keys. Different cages take different keys. Once you have a key, one of the Merry Men on the level will start jumping up and down, all right, and waving his arms. That's when you know that's the next guy. That guy that you're going to rescue is the next one in line to help you solve the puzzle. Because almost every time, if there are multiple Merry Men, you have to rescue one. You have to rescue them in a certain order. And if you don't rescue them in a certain order, you can be boned.
Right.
Because the ability to rescue them out of order is there, but I mean, effectively, you're screwed. So once you rescue a Merry Man, if he doesn't leave, he will perform a task to help you. Sometimes he'll walk over on top of a button in the floor that'll raise the door. Sometimes he'll pick up something for you. Sometimes he will. There's one level where he works a winch and your guy rides it up to another level to an opening or to a cage to let a guy out. They do a lot of different stuff. After a few levels, you get to the point where you start having, instead of just having one big sort of scrolling level that's one screen, you get to points where you have to go through caves, and the cave will take you to a separate section of the dungeon. And then there'll maybe be 1 or 2 doors in there. There can be even a third section of the dungeon. And at the bottom left-hand side of the screen is like an overarching map that will kind of tells you where you're at. There's also there's a map key you can hit that lets you gives you an expanded version of that. So it can get confusing. It could be. I mean, really, I never got. And this is me we're talking about here. I never got mega confused. And I went through about the first. I'd say I worked about the first 10 levels. A lot, and then every once in a while I'd get lucky and move up. But I never got too confused to where I didn't know where I was going. But there were plenty of times where I wouldn't know what I was supposed to do. Mm-hmm. The first thing I learned is that the obstacles in the dungeon, for example, monsters, right? They don't affect the merry men. The merry men can just run right through them because I spent it forever on like the second level trying to figure out a way to get
that guy going back and
forth.
Right,
I was like, how's he going to get past? He's going to eat him. Mm-hmm. Well, he just walks past him, and so that was kind of weird, mm-hmm. but it's okay because good Lord, I don't know what you do without it. You also have to learn. You have to look at things before you act. I mean, really, this is one of those games where you have to really take a minute and figure out where everything's at. Some things can be sort of obscure to see because the dungeon is so small. Those buttons on the floor can be tough to see. There were some, early on when I first started playing, there would be things that would like be laying in the background that I thought were actually something you could pick up that you couldn't. So that got kind of weird. You have to learn how to, like, controlling your guy, not that tough, I didn't think. But picking stuff up can sometimes be a little tedious. And also, when you have to pick up the little merry men and throw them and stuff, that can be a little difficult if you don't know what you're doing right away.
That was the trickiest part for me, is figuring out, because again, you're dealing with one button, the right combination of hold and press to make the throwing action do what I wanted it to do. I felt like the jumping mechanic, once I got the hang of what I wanted to do, I felt like the instructions didn't really explain it the way that worked for me. I had to sort of find my own way to figure out how to jump across multiple chasms of different, of different lengths. But once I did figure it out, it became kind of second nature.
Yeah, this game, when I first played it, I will be completely truthful, and I turned it on, and I looked at what we were doing. I was like, oh boy. This is going to be one of those puzzle games, because admittedly I am a action junkie, and I like Lemmings. Don't get me wrong, but it's not something I go back to a lot because it gets frustrating and I get pissed off, and I'm like, yeah, screw this. I'll have to say, after I learned how to control Ben and generally got the idea of what was going on, I have really actually enjoyed this game more than I thought I would. It is not perfect, which I'll get into in a moment, but if you told me, hey, we're going to make an action version of Lemmings, I'd think you were nuts. I have no idea how you could possibly pull this off. And to their credit, they did. And to Psygnosis's credit, when they saw what these guys were doing, they're the ones that made Lemmings, but they still were impressed enough to go ahead and put this out. Mm-hmm. I mean, because you could see where you'd be like, screw this. We got Lemmings, we don't need this. And this is a different game than Lemmings. And really everywhere I looked on the net, and all the sources I saw, they compared this to Lemmings over and over. And
those people are dumb.
Well, no, they're not dumb. There certainly are comparisons, but I mean, the action elements are fun. Now, your guy has hit points, a pretty expansive health bar. Mm-hmm. Like early on, anyway. Again, through the first, say, 10 levels or so, I did not have any trouble with my health in terms of just attrition, losing health till I died. There are certain things that kill you automatically, including, and the big one is water. Once you go in the water, level over and game over, you're done. Now, this game doesn't really have men. I mean, you just basically can start the game again, mm-hmm. and so you do, but you have to start again. And that was a pain in the butt. You have to go back, especially when you're playing off floppy. You got to go back to it, and you got to, And I wish it had a quick start right away. So what I ended up doing eventually after I moved over from the Amiga to the computer was I just did a save state at the beginning of every level, and then I would start back from there because I didn't want to have to go through all the rigmarole. So that I wish they could have done that a little better. For someone as blind as me, this was really small, really small. Mm-hmm. And as much as I understood why they went that small, for me, it was too small. I would like to have had a 20% larger. It's just awful small, and it made it hard for me to see everything I needed to see. There are hidden traps in some of these areas. It made jumping and platforming more difficult for me. And it wasn't the controls, it was the fact that I just had trouble seeing the moment I needed to lift off of that platform to jump. I would just go too far.
So you would rather it be more of like a Prince of Persia height for your character?
It didn't have to be quite that big, but I mean a little bit bigger. Because I mean I dealt with it. Did you have any problems with the little tininess of it?
I can see both sides. I mean, it's really a zero-sum game. You can either see more of the... I would have gotten more frustrated if there would have been a bunch of blind jumps and things of that nature,
right,
than the other way around, where you're sort of complaining that you can't quite see everything, because it's so tiny.
Right. Now, the people that put this out, of course, like I said, it was Digital Illusions. They are still around, in a manner of speaking. They're DICE, which they were responsible for the Battlefield games. We sort of covered them when we did the pinball episodes. Right. Like I said, this was sort of out of their comfort zone, I think, but I thought they did a good job. I will say the opening for this, if you watch it closely, they have a sort of the scrolling. These guys are demo scene guys, and you can tell. It's got all the stuff you would expect. It's got sort of like Star Wars style
scroll, yeah.
But if you watch the beginning of it, there's a sort of a scroll at the bottom. At the top, there's like a little video panel. I'd bet dollars to donuts it's the exact same size and exact same programming that they use in the pinball games for their readout. Ooh. It looked just like it. Now, I'm sure I'm not the first person to notice that.
I don't know. I didn't pick up on that.
It looked just... I thought to myself, you could put the machines around that, and it would be...
That's quite perceptive.
So I did notice. And I bet they used some... Because you know how the pinball machines had that sort of video? They would use, I bet it's similar. It was just like I said, it was like a rectangle.
Yeah.
So I noticed that when it was coming up. These guys also did the Mirror's Edge series, which I thought was awesome. I really like Mirror's Edge, and like I said, Star Wars Battlefront, they were involved in that too. So these guys, clearly talented, and of course they have stuck around for, they're still around. I don't know how many of them actually work for the current version that worked back then, but it'd be neat to think that some of them did. So this game has a ton of levels that are split into basically 6 zones, 7 zones really if you count the last couple. There's an underworld, there's an Egypt, there's like a treetop thing, there's Stones and Bones, Merry Winterland, the Techno Treat, and then lastly, To Hell with the Minot, or the Miniot, and which is the last couple levels. I got nowhere near the end of this game. However, I did use of course, this is one of those games that uses access codes to get to certain levels, which is great. You can just type those in. If you're not going to have a save, I don't mind the codes. Codes are okay. And what do you have an opinion on the codes on a computer?
To be honest with you, I think that sometimes the codes are easier when you have, because it's not like you're going to save in the middle of one of these levels.
Yeah, well, I saved in the middle of them all the time.
Well, that's true, I guess. But I don't.
Cheated,
I don't know if any game would give you that option.
Right.
And so it makes it easy because once you have all the codes, if you got them in a book or whatever, you can jump around the levels. I like the codes. I think.
Yeah,
cool.
I like the codes. Now, a couple other things about this that I wanted to mention. This got a CD32 release, and which is good, and it's probably one of the better CD32 games there is if you consider that library. It was. I don't think. Had you heard of this game before it got picked?
Never.
I hadn't. I'd never even heard the name mentioned. I mean, the only time we would have ever talked about it is when we were doing the pinball episodes and we were naming off what they'd done.
It's funny how many games do we say that about, and they turned out to be awesome. There's so many hidden gems, at least hidden from us.
It is. And again, I doubt this ever got a release. I mean, I might have, but you never know with Psygnosis. They may have released it here, but I mean, it's an unusual game. This game was made and mentions the fact that it's going to have data discs for level expansions. There were none ever officially released, what that tells me is I'm assuming it didn't sell that well, be my guess. and which is strange to me because this is the kind of game that you could have put on any. This is a game that could be redone right now, and would. I mean, I'm sure this concept's been ripped off to death.
Yeah, I have no idea why this didn't come out on the PC. Why they didn't port it.
It has sort of a what's that game my brother plays? Splunky. You ever played
Spelunker,
that?
yeah.
It's got sort of a.
Oh yeah, Spelunky. You're right.
It looks. Like I said, I would definitely, especially in a day where we have higher resolution graphics, I would make these. I would go up about 20% on the size. I mean, the merry men are so tiny; it's unbelievable. And often they'll follow you. They'll go out the door, but sometimes you have to go check them. Where are
It's funny though because even as small as they are, they still have personality.
They do. And it's funny when they jump, they go, hey, they make a little noise. There's also evil merry men. We should not forget about these guys. Now, I had no idea what to do. On the first level, I had an evil merry man. I'm sure you knew. I didn't know. What you've got to do is you have to find this machine and dump like paint in it. And then it basically, because the merry men are not colored, they're black and white. They have no color, and the story is they've been in isolation so long that they've forgotten, effectively, how to be good, and so they turned evil. And what they do is they won't do anything. They just wander around. Sometimes they'll screw you, if you know. So you've got to go and find the paint to put in this machine, and then the paint will color the merry men. And once they do that, then they're useful. And of course you're not leaving the level without a guy. You've got it, so you have to do it. I didn't get too many levels with them. They just started appearing towards the end of the 10 or 15 levels I played, but they're a pain in the butt. And so that adds a different slant to the game that one would not expect. I did watch a guy complete this game. This is not, we talk about these games all the time. It's like, oh, you could bust it out in 40 minutes. No. This game is a beast. You're probably talking, if you sit down and play it like organically, you're probably in for, up near 100 hours of game time.
This is the only video I've ever seen. We use World of Long Plays, their footage all the time. This is the only game I've seen where they've actually had to break it up into 2 videos.
Right.
It's like each video is over an hour long.
Yeah. It was a real long one. But I watched the end of it. The end is fairly satisfying. I mean, you get something. I will say there's flavor text to beat the band. It's also one of the few times I've seen the developers thank the fans, and they're very kind. It's like, if you have any questions about it, write us a letter. Here's the address. It was a real nice message at the end of the game, which I don't think I've ever seen that before. In all the times we've been doing this, where they were like, here's our address. Feel free to write us a letter. So I thought that was cute. And there's a nice graphic at the end as well. So that you get something of a satisfying ending. And if you beat this game, you should just have filled with self-satisfaction.
Right.
You really shouldn't need an ending to it because it
You've
gets
been through
pretty
the gauntlet.
tricky. It gets pretty tricky. But I will say, as much as I got to play with this week, and I played quite a bit of it. And again, not being from a background where I played a lot of these games, it took me longer than it would take most people. I never got super frustrated where I wanted to kill myself. I got irritated when I had to restart because I don't like having to wait. I wish you could just instantly restart, which no game really did that back in the day, but it would be nice. This game you can never do at this size on a mobile device, but if you blew it up, you could. But I mean, like you said, on a PC now, this screams for a remake. And I'm sure some stuff's like this, and we just haven't played it. Because I can't imagine a concept like this. Action puzzler hasn't been revisited.
Right.
And the monsters in it are pretty wacky as well. We should mention that. There's some real wacky stuff. There's weird stuff that comes out of the ground. There's traps.
You know what we're thinking about games that are like this sort of like side-scrolling puzzle platformer. Remember that game we played on Amigathon, Bubba and Sticks? That's sort of like this, but with a with bigger graphics.
Yeah, slow, and it's probably a little slower than this. I mean, this game is pretty manic when you get a lot of stuff going on the screen. This reviewed pretty well. I'm looking over these ratings here. Amiga Action gave it 90%, pretty good. And The One gave it an 85. CU Amiga 87, so pretty good scores. Amiga Power, I don't know what happened there, but they gave it a 57, so I guess they didn't like it. And Amiga Format gave it a 68, so not everyone was on board.
That sort of goes against the conventional wisdom that, you know, once 94 rolled around, all the magazines just sort of started rating everything awesome because they saw the writing on the wall.
Well, yeah, it does. You're right.
Yeah.
And honestly, I mean, giving this game a 57, I mean, again, maybe they just thought it was too much of a Lemmings thing, but I mean,
I don't buy that. I don't agree with that.
I mean, really, it doesn't play anything like Lemmings.
No,
when
you've got
down
direct control over your guy.
But I mean, and I will say the art, the music is repetitive but good, and the art is tremendous. And this is much like a Sensible Games. The little guy is well animated, interesting. The level in between level parts is cool. The guy's leaning on this thing, like all kind of like a cool guy. He looks like a proper hero.
Yeah. The
merry men aren't just little like stressed out midgets. I mean, they're actually the most helpful NPCs of all time. They do stuff that you need, and that's a refreshing change from just guys that just run off.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, come back, help!
Right.
Why did I rescue you? So overall, again, much like I've said this how many times, a million. This game was way more fun than I thought it would be, and I played it a lot more than I thought I would. I really enjoyed it. I looked it up on eBay, and the CD32 version you can get in the UK for $23. Not bad. The box version, the floppies, it was available in the US for, I saw a box set for $40 and a box set for $35. And then I saw one that had sold recently for $50, so I'm guessing that's about the going average, between $40 and $50. Not bad. I mean, you should have known when it was, from who was developing it, that it would be quality. Those guys turn out top shelf stuff. So, you know, any final thoughts on it? I mean, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I truly think that this is one of we play a lot of games on this show that I think are garbage, and sometimes they're popular games and it doesn't make me popular. But this is really a game that I'd never heard of before before it was suggested by Pixels at Dawn. I played it, and I couldn't believe that I'd never played it before or even heard about it. It was so good.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm starting to think maybe we should just never pick our own game.
Yeah.
We just let everyone else pick the games for us, because our taste is certainly garbage compared to the listeners. But yeah, fun stuff. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. All right. Well, before we start the end of the show, I wanted to thank everybody that's hanging out with us in the chat this evening, including Leaf Killand, Dan Ross, Pixels at Dawn, Hasifa, Necronom, Gary Hucker, Will Williams, the Guru Meditation. Hey guys. UK Retro Gamer, everybody, Amiga Dude, thank you so much for hanging out with us. We do record the show every Friday, except when we don't. So at 5:30 p.m. Eastern, the next 2 weeks of Amigos are going to be pre-recorded. However, if you hear this somehow before tomorrow afternoon, feel free to check in. And if you're watching live in the chat right now, feel free to check in tomorrow at 1 p.m. or 2 p.m. Eastern.
Tomorrow being what?
Tomorrow is Saturday.
Yeah, but I'm telling. So you can tell them what the day is in case they're listening.
Well, there's only one tomorrow for the people that hear this, because it'll be too late otherwise.
That's what I'm saying. You should tell them what the actual date's going to be.
Well, I don't know the actual
date. It's the 17th.
Okay,
it's the 17th.
Thank you. You could have just said the 17th.
Well, I didn't know it. While I was interrogating you, I had to come up with it. You see.
But we're going to start. Are we going to start at 1 or 2?
2.
We're going to start at 2. And we're going to do 4 episodes of, we're going to do 2 episodes of Amigos and 2 episodes of ARG Presents back to back to back to back. So
that's going to be
come on out for a podcasting
marathon. Yeah.
But anyway, thank you so much for supporting us on Patreon, all of you fine patrons. If you want to support us, you can go to amigos.com. Nope, that's not right. Patreon.com/AmigosPodcast. Don't forget to check out our sister show, ARG Presents, where we look at 2 games on a different system each week. And follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Google Plus and Instagram.
Everything.
Everything.
We're everywhere.
All right, guys. Last week there was no winner of the Patreon Song Challenge. I realized that I picked something obscure. Aaron is something that's really Aaron's bag. I like to call it prenatal music because I wasn't born when it was made. So I just kind of call all of that stuff prenatal music. But this week I'm going to pick something that I hope maybe you're more familiar with. We'll see how it goes.
You going to tell them what last week's was?
Last week's was Moon Age Daydream by David Bowie.
So you're telling me no one got Moon Age Daydream?
It's like I said, it's stuff that you know, but it's obscure. you're kind of
These
one of those
people,
guys that...
You're telling me no one here likes Bowie?
I'm telling you that you pick a band like the Smiths, people respond.
It's going to be a long day tomorrow, I can tell that. There's going to be a lot of college music dropped out.
Necronom says last week's was very easy.
You should have chimed in, Nick. Help a brother out here.
All right. Boy. I'm really going to turn down. I really blew out.
You're like a proper musician. You got to fiddle with the knobs and do all that stuff to get the deal going. Oh, boy, tuning it up. Man, I've never seen this much prep. That's going to be great.
All right, so we'll see. We'll see how you do on this one.
All right. Waterloo.
Dan Ross, Leaf, Pilon, Alan Cabot, Donald Tyler, Levalor, John Marshall, Matthew Perron, Ricky DeRocher, Creepy Dead Boy,
Yeah.
Biggie CTZ, The Slow Norris, Stefan Sorgon, Mortensen, Edvin Helland, Window 75, Christopher Hessel, and Ravi Abbott, Chris Foltz, Dreamcatcher Lauren Giroux, Griffith King, Lane Denson, Adam Battersby, O'Brien's Retro and Vintage, Gary Kersey, Brian Jones, Paul Harrington, Duncan Styles, Anthony Jarvis, tapes from the crypt, Josh Nan, Will Williams, Adam Bradley, Jonas Rulo, THG, Eric Nelson, Kim Tommy Humberstadt, Daniel Bingston, Brutal Barracuda, Darren Coles, Jason Moores, Pixels at Dawn, Kjolbjorn Barman.
That was something. That was something.
You never
Bo.
say nice things about my music.
I didn't say any bad things. You just assumed it was. I was thinking it was
I
garbage.
can read your eyes like a book.
Dr. Seuss. That was beautiful, Boat.
Thank you. Thank you.
Skrillex. That was it. Dan got it.
All right. So next week, we are going to play.
Get the guitar quick.
No, I know what it is. We're going to play Alcatraz.
Oh, yes.
We're gonna play Alcatraz. This is a pick by Amigos Game Selection Committee member Brutal Barracuda.
The brutal one.
And it's going to be a good one. So it's going to be great. We'll see you then. Until next time, guys.
Adios. What a billing. You really gave that one a big build up. It's going to be great. This was a beautiful disaster tonight. Non-stop.
I could do that. That's a good song.
Oh,
Beautiful
my God.
Disaster.
That was way easy. Everyone knew that one.
Well, I tried. Nobody
Skrillex.
answered. Nobody answered last week, so I had to go super easy. Maybe nobody cares.
Anytime you run something where people have to like communicate with you, you're pretty much always boned.
Yeah, it's true.
I've heard that over and over again over the
very
years
true.
on podcasts.
See you, Guru Meditation.
Bye, guys. I enjoyed your stream.
All right. So give me just a second. My dad called. I want to make sure everything's okay. You can entertain the chat, and we'll do a little bit of a pre-show.
Okay. Hi, chat.
I've got stuff. I've got stuff to talk about. Can you see that? You want me to zoom?
No,
in?
I'm good. I'm not at 100.
Well,
Get my walker and my milk and magnesium. Bring it over here too.
Half of the Benefactor review talking about how you couldn't see what was going on the screen.
It's small, man.
So it's like that.
So you're telling me you didn't think Benefactor was tiny?
No, I'm giving you all that.
Luckily, I mean, if I had a 70,000-inch TV, I'd be laughing. But unfortunately, I was putting on my monitor, so that didn't help. Turn Boat's mic. You don't want that, Gary. Turn it down, all the way down. Turn that thing all the way down. He said your mic's too low, Boat.
It's because I turned it down when I was singing.
Oh, good, yeah. He turned it down when he was singing. Not low enough. Not even close to low enough. Yeah, guys, I'm telling you, it's not boat. I'm feeling wacky today. I'm having a rough time getting it together. So tomorrow should be even better. 4-hour megathon of fun and delight. We should have a good time, though. Theoretically, right, Mr. Boat?
My dad, it's funny because he's like, I was just calling, but I just remember
Nice, thank you, Hasifa. We appreciate that.
He's like, I was just calling, but I remember that you're doing the podcast, so everybody knows that Friday is the day that we do the podcast.
Everybody knows. Remember that song?
Maybe. How does the rest of it go?
Everybody knows that the dice
some turkey
are
and some
loaded.
mistletoe make the season bright.
No. Leonard Cohen. Everybody knows.
Man, I hate him.
You hate Leonard Cohen?
I'm
stunned by that.
I hate the song Hallelujah. Like
I love that song.
I know everybody does, and that's why I hate it.
Why do you? So you're one of these people that go against the grain just to be because you don't want to be the popular guys.
Let me.
It's a beautiful song.
Let me explain. It's a beautiful song that is all about lamenting the loss of an adulterous relationship, and people don't actually get that. They don't get that this fact is sad that he has to leave this relationship with this girl that he's been cheating on with her husband.
Have you listened to any Leonard Cohen songs?
Well,
he doesn't sing about sunshine and lollipops.
And that's fine. Like, I'm a huge Tom Waits fan. He's sort of cut from the same cloth. But people saying, "Oh, Hallelujah, it's the most beautiful love song ever written." It's got great music, but that's not what it is.
Okay, these are multiple good questions.
All right,
where did the boat name come from?
I thought you were the boat name.
Yeah,
it comes from They Might Be Giants song, "Boat of Car," and you can explain why you started calling me that.
I can't remember anyone's name. It said I knew he was named Boat of Car, and so I just called him Boat. Does anyone call you? Everyone calls you Boat now, don't they?
Everybody associated with this show.
What? Chad and Matt, they call you Boat, don't they?
Yeah, Chad and Matt do, but
what
not
about Brent.
No, and Chad, like my Chad, doesn't. Okay. Only your Chad.
I'm bad with names, y'all. In fact, I love the fact that most people have like nicknames on the internet because that's a lot easier for me to remember. You know, why am I even involved in a podcast? I can't remember names. I can't see things. It's almost over for me.
What was your actually? Let's go ahead and start the.
I need the. Oh, we weren't even recording that. Thank God.
Yeah. So
we need to have like a geriatric, like a retro gamer who's too old to play anymore, and I can just talk about games and how much current games stink and why I hate them.
Isn't that Shane R. Monroe?
No. Why do you rag on that poor guy? You've never listened to show one of that guy.
So give me a rundown of the history of your handles online.
I've had very few, to be completely honest with you. The first handle I ever had was in the BBS days, early on. And I was a big fan of Greg the Hammer Valentine, a wrestler. And so I was simply known as the Hammer.
That's a good name.
No, it's not.
Oh.
I was the Hammer. And so the Hammer was my TRS-80 name. And all the BBS guy did on the TRS-80 was the Hammer. And then one day I was like, that's a stupid name. And I was getting into the local scene on the PC, with the local BBS scene. I was looking at all these different names, and everyone had cool names. You had the Shadow Master, and the Road Warrior, and the Ninja, and the Batman. And I was like, everyone's got, and Stormtrooper was another guy. All these guys. I was like, I'm going to pick a name that's not very cool at all. What should I be? And I didn't know. And like I've told this story before, but eventually I needed a nickname on a BBS. And I looked at the Bloom County I was reading, Bloom County Comic, and it was an episode about backward masking, or an issue, or a comic strip about backward masking. And Opus says, I snort the nose, devil bunnies, banana, banana. That's what it says backwards. And one guy goes, it's a satanic riddle. That's what he says. And I thought, devil bunny, yeah, I'll use that. And I just used it ever since. I've always been the devil bunny. And so people always think I'm a girl. And they're half right, but it's always a handle that I've had, and I've never changed it. I've always been the same. And I use my email, all my resumes.
Talk about your last job interview.
Yeah, when I applied for the police, I used my Devil Bunny email address, and I until that guy left the force, he called me Bunny. He thought that was the funniest thing he'd ever seen. On my interview, he mentioned it. He mentioned it on the phone interview.
That's probably how you got that job.
I told my folks got all over me. You're using the Devil Bunny email address. Have you lost your mind? And I said, listen, it's my main email. And I told her, I was like, if someone's going to judge me, this is such a stupid thing to say, but if someone's going to judge me based on my email, brother, then I'm not going to work there in the first place. I'll show them, which is a stupid thing to say. But I've always kept the name, man.
Kept the dream alive.
And I remember back in the 90s, the late 80s, early 90s, I would be at the mall, Huntington Mall, and people would go, "Hey, Bunny." And everyone would look at me, and I'd be like, "Hey, Dr. Feelgood," or "Hey, Moon Pup," or whoever was there.
Moon Pup is my
Moon Pup was another guy that I was on the bulletin boards. It was Chad's arch nemesis. At this point, Chad was known as the Integrator, and we would. So people called me Bunny for short. So tons of people knew me as just Bunny for years and years. So, but most people don't call me that know me. But some of my BBS buddies still do. So, you get used to it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know. So, yeah, I am showing my age, Gary. I was on the BBSs for years and years. Yeah, Moon Pup was a real piece of work. He was an older guy that used to be on the BBSs in Huntington.
When you say older guy, he was still probably younger than you are now, right?
Oh, absolutely. And him and my buddy Chad had a feud where they actually going to have an actual physical fight.
What was the...
By the way, Pixels, yes. We're going to put that to bed tomorrow during one of the shows.
What was the instigation of this fight? What were they arguing over on the BBS?
It was some kind of geek battle. We were on boards.
It was like Star Wars versus Star Trek.
We took, you know how people have, now flaming online is horrible. Oh my God! And I mean, it's got a big deal, bullying and all that stuff. But on the BBSs, we took flame wars to a new level. It was for fun. We never really thought about it, but occasionally people would get upset. And it was some kind of flame thing that went down between the two of those guys, and you had to ask him.
Well, on the next episode of the Wilcox Hour, we'll take a deep dive
the first
into
episode
that.
of the Wilcox Hour. And so, but I mean, I'm guessing. Did you have anything before you used Boat of Car?
Yeah, I was Hajij for a really long time, which was there was a magic card called El Hajjaj, and then Chad. Like I've got this marionette, and one day Chad came over and he's like, "Man, that guy his name's El Hajjaj." And I was like, "Oh, what?" And he's like, "I don't know." And so when AOL came out, I needed a screen name, and so I became Hajij.
What?
And but then like there were a lot of like bad associations with like people calling me like a terrorist and stuff because it sounds like something Middle Eastern, I guess. And so I kind of dropped that.
Which is sort of that's sad.
It is sad.
Because I grew up listening to like Ali Bob and the 40 Thieves and all that stuff, and no one thought twice about that stuff.
Exactly. It's a different
It's
world.
funny because I remember when I was younger, like, and especially if you listen to old radio shows, we hear stuff about like Baghdad and stuff. It's just these like exotic locales.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
man, I'd like to go there.
Not anymore. You don't want to go there now.
I'd still sort of like to go, but I'd like to go there when everybody's cool.
Right.
Right.
But anyway, so then for a very short amount of time, I was SCV fan 99.
SC what?
SCV fan 99.
What's SCV?
SCV stands for Santa Clara Vanguard, my favorite drum corps.
And see, if it was SCTV fan, you'd have me.
99 being the year of my high school graduation.
I see. But you were band geeking it up there with those guys.
Yeah, and then soon after that, when I joined the forums and when AOL got people, old internet people remember like September of 1993 or 1994 when Usenet was opened up to the AOL crowd.
I remember
it was the end of the world.
I remember it.
And that's when I became Boat of Car.
I see. So a long stretch then.
Yeah.
And I'm sure, much like my old nickname, you probably get some looks too when people call you Boat.
You're the only person that calls me. They're the only person I've ever met in real life outside of, well, I guess there's like Flack and people like that.
The thing is, there are 10 billion Johns.
Right.
How many boats are walking around?
Not
there
too
can't
many.
be that many.
Right. It's really good.
Plus, you got your boat shirt.
Yeah, I got this.
It's tremendous.
I'm wearing the boat shirt special for the podcast tonight.
I mean, you are a boat.
Yeah.
Not Boat of Car. Because I can't remember that much. But boat. That's all I got.
Have you ever heard the song Boat of Car before?
Probably, because that was a big They Might Be Giants fan. I don't know what album it would have been on.
It's on their first album. It's got a.
I don't know if I ever heard their first album.
Yeah, it's a very odd song that has to do with.
Wow, an odd song from them.
Yeah,
Stunning.
Yeah, it's about the Kennedy, Ted Kennedy, and the car under the water and all that stuff.
You mean that doesn't sound savory.
Yeah. So, but that's.
By the way, the epitome of college music, by the way, is They Might Be Giants. and I think I was the biggest. Hey, listen, I was the biggest They May Be Giants fan you ever saw.
You're the only person that I've ever seen that like names genres of music after the age that you were when you first heard them.
That's not what that means.
That's like
because the college music's being released today.
Everything that you call college music was big when you were in college.
No, that's not true. There are college music that's big. There was stuff that came out that was college music that well after I was gone.
Like what?
Oh God. I mean,
here we go, folks.
You're trying to ask me about dates and stuff, which I'm not good at.
But it would be like me calling Michael Jackson elementary school music.
No. It's 120 minutes type music. Like, what would they call it? There was a name for that genre.
Alternative.
There you go.
Okay, so whenever you say college music, you just mean alternative.
That's pretty much,
music.
yeah.
But the Smiths aren't alternative.
That's your opinion. It's a lot like the role-playing thing. Is Duncan Stiles still here? Help me out, Duncan. Hop in. I don't want to tussle with you again, because there's been several times tonight that I was afraid you're going to take your Perrier bottle, break it over the desk, and just start cutting me.
When was the last time you had a cool, refreshing glass of Perrier?
It's
France's finest.
See, I don't have the kind of money it takes to get Perrier. I get Poirier. There's an O in it. You get it at the dollar store.
This is probably $25 or $30 a bottle, Perrier. So.
Man,
that's how I roll.
That's a plastic bottle, isn't it?
It is.
So I was safe this whole time. I thought you were going to gut me with it.
This is pretty thin glass, though. This would break pretty easy.
I work in a prison.
You see this? You see this cup? Have you ever seen that cup?
Let's see.
Kentucky Derby. I got that at Churchill Downs.
Oh yeah, were you in the infield for that particular event?
No, unfortunately, I wasn't there during the Derby, or maybe fortunately.
Now there's a loaded question. Well, I'll tell you something, Dan. A few years back, we had a little problem where one of our a plant, a storage facility that stored a chemical used in the cleaning process of coal leaked into the Kanawha River, and it happened to be about a mile upstream from the water company's intake, and so the water company took all this yuck in, and it leaked forever, like it was a week, right? And it spit out all this nasty water all over the place. Now, we were lucky. Were you living here at that time?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It was my first year.
We were lucky because we have a reservoir, but everyone north of us, and some people even around here.
like across the street from me, like Chad, because it depends on where your water is serviced from.
Yeah.
And if you're on city water, like me and Aaron are, we were okay because our water comes from our city reservoir. But if you get your water sort of piped in from this other place, American Water Services,
that's right,
then you were screwed.
And so, here's the wacky thing about that is that the water would smell like black licorice, right? And it was nasty. Mm-hmm. And no one knew what this chemical, there had never been studies done to know what this chemical would do to a person that drank it.
Right.
And so it was contaminated for quite a while, and they had to everybody flush their water. And so they accumulated all this nastiness out of the water. And so again, Hurricane, where we're at, was not affected for the most part.
Right.
So what did they do? They took this accumulation of this sludge, and they buried it in our landfill.
Yeah.
And so Teresa,
which is at the end of my road that I end up on.
So Teresa was like, listen, they buried all that in our landfill. And we rode out there in the car, and the whole area smelled like, guess what, black licorice. Mm-hmm. So there was a big fuss, and the mayor was like, get that the hell out of here. And they took all that water, and I don't know where they took it. It seems like another
state. They probably just took it over to Culloden.
They just dumped it in.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is a long story because I do drink out of the tap on occasion. But
I drink out of the tap all the time.
But
I just like sparkling water.
Yeah, West Virginia's water is a sore point. Plus, I can't tell you how many mine runoffs and slurry ponds.
The chemical industry used the Kanawha River as its personal dumping ground for half a decade.
I mean, you've heard of antifreeze. It was invented in Charleston because they noticed that the river wasn't freezing. And that's a shoot. That's true.
Mm-hmm,
and they were like, hey, let's use this chemical
true.
for antifreeze. That's how they developed it. Mm-hmm. So I would not, for the most part, around this area, I would not swim in the water, fish in the water, or generally go into the water. It's no good.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're a beautiful state with crystal clear water, just not here, not this part.
Not in this, not in the,
I mean, if any of you guys are familiar with the Bhopal, India disaster, the sister plant to Bhopal is about 15 miles from here.
My father works at that plant.
And my mom worked beside it for decades.
Yeah.
And just probably once a month at least, they would clear the place out for a leak or something. And people have died there. And it's scary.
Yeah.
It's always been scary, but This used to be called Chemical Valley because there's a crap load. There used to be a lot of chemical manufacturing, not so much now.
Yeah, they've all moved overseas. But yeah, welcome to West Virginia. Come visit. Well, we'd love to have you.
Yeah,
come on over to Amigos Studios.
That did not help our tourism, did it? The whole water incident. Because now we got a thing. Oh yeah, that's the place where they got the crap water.
We got the crap water and the highest drug overdose rate in the nation.
Bam! So. Do not wash your heroin down with local water.
All right. So Aaron.
You got notes for this?
I got notes.
All right.
Okay. I teach a music appreciation class.
I've heard that.
At OU. Or not at OU. That's where I went to college.
Oklahoma University?
Ohio University.
Oh, that's right.
Real
OU.
One.
Oh, man.
But at West Virginia State University. Former employment of your mother, right?
Yeah, West Virginia State. That's correct. Yeah. And I went to school there as well.
Yeah. So I teach, and I'm like, talk about this old piece of music from the classical era and compare it to newer music.
All right.
Okay?
Yeah.
And I noticed that tons and tons of students this semester, and this has never happened before, they write about ABBA all the time. And so much more often than a real band like the Smiths.
Right.
And I wanted to share that with you, that perhaps
are you trying to talk about ABBA and the Smiths in the same breath?
Your own brand of musical mysticism is gaining ground, and maybe ABBA is on its way back.
Let me ask you: do you like ELO?
Yeah, I like ELO.
Do you like Queen?
Yes.
All right. And ABBA and ELO and Queen and some of these other bands, they're all beautifully produced.
Mm-hmm.
Right. There's something to it. Yes, they have good singers. They have excellent arrangements, right? But the art of music production, especially in that era when not everyone was produced properly or well, it makes a big difference. And I think the key to ABBA's success, you had hot women, check. You had catchy tunes, check. But other bands had that. They were beautifully produced. Their sound was very unique, and it was the wall of sound, if you will.
Right.
And I think that was key. And that's the key to the longevity as well.
Well, I just thought that would make you feel good that ABBA is popular among the youth
gets it.
At West Virginia State University.
Pixels gets it too.
So have you played?
So everyone gets it. Everyone's with me on this. They're
That's good.
No one's going like, what about the Smiths? No one gives a crap about the Smiths. Get that out. Good God. I
thought we might talk a little bit about video games. Have you played any video games besides the video games that we talk about on our shows this week?
It's funny. I think I was talking to Hasifa about this. I play every night this week. I've played Fire Pro Wrestling with the kid as usual.
Now I still haven't played this. This is a 2D wrestling game?
Yes, absolutely.
And it's set, but it's like an isometric perspective, right?
Yeah, me and Luke picked up, like this week, we had a battle royal with all the Marvel guys. We had Captain America, the Red Skull, we had Iron Man, and we had a big throwdown to see what happened. And also, that game, I love Map Mania. Someone did all the characters in Map Mania, so we had a big Map Mania throwdown this week for one.
Wow. So having the Steam Workshop support really makes a difference with that.
We're going to do that, Dan, by the way. The DOS is on the table, which hasn't been put up yet. But yeah, DOS is absolutely on the table. I'm sorry.
So the Steam Workshop support is really good for that.
Tremendous. Yeah. And all the characters are free to download.
Is there an Abdullah?
There are tons of them. We've got him. He's in the game. Kamala. We got everybody. Is in there.
Giant Haystack?
Listen, my son plays himself. We made a guy
That's
for
awesome.
him. I mean, and the character creator on this is second to none. But we also jumped back into I Can't Escape San Francisco Rush. We played more of San Francisco Rush. My son is a creature of habit. And so we've played a lot of that. So what have I played on the side? I played some more of that Donkey Kong for the Game Boy. The thing is, I've played mostly show stuff this week for the obvious reason. I played a lot of Benefactor. It took me a good while I played it a couple times before I could really get settled in. I was just like,
It took me a while to get into it too.
But once I got into it, I was down. The stuff we did on ARG, again, I had to play it, and it
wasn't your best week on ARG because Zelda's not your cup of tea, and then Lode Runner was
Zelda
just awful.
was way better than what I picked. It was I should have mentioned on this. It was Fathoms and Fathoms better. I was disappointed in Lode Runner, honestly.
Because the first game is so good, or the original Lode Runner.
It was. I mean, are you saying it mockingly, or are you serious?
No, I'm serious.
Okay, it was. It was really good.
I did a Game Boy stream earlier this week, and I played a bunch of different stuff. But the thing that the game, and I can't remember, it was probably somebody in chat right now that suggested this, Legend of the River King.
I never heard of that.
You've got to try this game.
Is that what? On this is the Game Boy?
This is an original Game Boy.
All right, what is it?
Okay, so it is like it's like a role-playing game, but you're a fisherman. Okay, so like what you've got to do is you've got to go. It's sort of like Harvest Moon. Have you played any of those games before? Okay, so it's like you go out and your brother's sick and your mom's like, you've got to catch the golden trout or something like that to cure him. Okay, and so you go out and and then it's like role playing land outside and you're talking to people, and then you go to the river and there's like a fishing. It's like Sega bass fishing or something like that. You cast into the water and you're reeling it and you catch these fish and you can upgrade the fish and you can breed the fish and. I've never played anything like it, and I love it because I love stuff like that.
We should have mentioned, we forgot to mention that Zelda has a fishing element.
Yeah, I love the Zelda fishing minigame, too.
I didn't like it that much. I thought it was kind of stupid.
Well.
But I mean, I will say, I liked one thing you do with Zelda, I didn't mention this because you were killing me because I couldn't get a word in. I was afraid to talk. But Zelda had almost, and you're going to laugh when I say it, had almost like a GTA element to it. You could roam around, and here's a crane machine, and here's the fishing, and here's this, and here's a house that sells this. And for a game of that era, that had to be incredibly. I think it's the first time I've gotten it. I think this is the first time I've gotten the appeal of, because it's a free. I mean, there in that era, free roaming stuff, very, very rare. Right?
Yeah,
and so I could understand the adventure element of it.
Why didn't you talk about this on the show?
I tried to get it in, but you were I didn't want to get pounded anymore. You were beating me down. But I mean, I can understand the adventure element. Again, I don't the graphics, the plot, and all that stuff. Not my bag. But I actually got it. I got it. I think I got it.
That's it. That's
the
it.
appeal.
Yeah.
Just wander where because Ultima had the very same appeal to me. It was much clunkier, clearly, and it was more difficult to get around, a bigger pain in the butt all around. But it was the same. You can go anywhere you want. Right. You can do all this crazy stuff. And it was the same sort of feeling that I enjoyed having back in those days. The thought that, hey, instead of saying playing like Kung Fu Master, I'll get on this hall, and then the game ends, I can go, I wonder what's behind Tree 4 or Dragon's Lair. I wonder if I get off at the second jump on the disc, maybe there's new stuff in there I haven't seen. But that stuff doesn't have that. Whereas when you can do something like that, it's sort of exciting.
Yeah.
You can just edit that in.
Well, no, I mean, we're going to release this. So we're going to release this as there's a new thing for those of you who are in the chat and aren't on the Discord, which Leaf, you need to get on the Discord because I have not seen you on there. Creepy Dead Boy.
Oh, hey, Laron. We were just talking about
Laron, all you guys, every single one of you guys, I think you're all Patreon people. You need to get on the Discord and send me a message somehow on Twitter or whatever, and I'll tweet you back a link because it's got to be like a personal link. It's
oh yeah,
thing.
You guys need to get on Discord.
Yeah, because we're talking on Discord all the time, and it's awesome.
I like getting up in the morning since everybody is in the UK and Australia and stuff, and there's always like 4 million things waiting on me. So when I get to work, I'm like, let's see what these guys are talking about today.
Yeah, it's great. But we're going to release this.
Yeah, it's new to me too, Lee.
This show. It's going to be part of the main audio feed, and it's going to be called Insert Disc 2. Amigos Insert Disc 2.
Oh, Bo, aren't you clever?
And I
That's
didn't
better
come
than
up with
Amigos
that.
Extra.
Yeah.
Who came up with that one?
I think it might have been Pixels at Dawn.
Oh, gosh. Is there anything he can't do?
I don't know. It might not have been Pixels at Dawn.
I guess there is something he can't do.
It was somebody. Somebody on the Discord.
Admit that you're as bad with names as I am. It weren't me. Oh, what's... I thought he wrote, it weren't me. Hey, I'm in West Virginia. Just assumed. It weren't me. You're still great, Pixels. Don't worry.
It was Duncan Styles.
Once again, you have abused poor Duncan. It's because he sided with me.
Yeah, that's
Give
right.
that man credit.
That's right. Duncan Styles, responsible for the name. And we're going to release that on Wednesdays as part of, so we'll have Amigos will come out on whenever, Saturday or Sunday. And then on Wednesday will be like a midweek show where we just talk about other stuff.
So it's going to come out the same day as the...
ARG Presents is a different feed.
Oh, I see.
Yeah,
I got you.
Yeah,
okay.
This is actually going to come out on the Amigos
stuff.
feed.
I know.
Yeah. Or maybe I'll put it out on Thursday. That way you'll have something. We'll have something. Or maybe it'll be, I don't know. I haven't decided when I want to put it out.
Put it on Monday. Then you got something Monday, Wednesday, and Friday.
What's on Friday?
When's this? Oh, Saturday, I guess.
Yeah. Well, okay, but we could do Saturday.
Listen, do whatever you want.
Okay.
Just don't hurt me.
Okay.
I don't care what you do.
All right, guys. We're going to wrap up this insert disc 2.
We'll be back here in a few hours.
Yeah. But
literally, we'll be back here in less than 12 hours.
yeah, join us
Sweet
tomorrow.
Lord.
Join us tomorrow for more fun and excitement as we record 4 shows.
If you want to see an absolute train wreck, gentlemen, if you want to see 2 men melt down, a possible homicide, and you will be wanting to come around tomorrow. What at 2 p.m.
2
America,
p.m. Eastern. Yeah, America time.
America time.
We'll see you then. All right, guys.
Good night.
Good night. That's how we'll end